Okay. So, I don't know what happened. Uh, Firstly, I started a live stream with my microphone muted so no one could hear me. And then I started answering these questions, and I got like 10 minutes in, and I looked back at the, and I was like, no one's commenting. Like, this is a bit odd that no one's interacting. And then I looked, and my stream had stopped like 10 minutes ago. So I don't know why it cancelled itself and just stopped. I've no idea why. So hi again. We'll try again. But firstly, Merry Christmas. I hope you all had a lovely day yesterday. Hey Lily, how you doing? Christmas was good, thank you. So I went to my sister's house, and the family met there. My mother was there, sister was there, my niece and nephew, and my cousin William was there, who I don't see very often. And my little nephew, he got Mario Kart 8 on Nintendo Switch for a Christmas present. So we were playing Mario Kart together, which was fun. He also got a brand new scooter, and man, I used to have a scooter when I was young, and it was terrible. It wasn't very good. His scooter is amazing. Like, it's got like amazing control. The wheels are like this incredible rubber texture thing, which on the wooden floors of my sister's house, it's like gliding on ice. I mean, but like super stable. I was zooming around the house on this scooter. It was amazing. I wish I'd have had a scooter like that when I was his age. The technology in it is just, I can't explain it, but the way it rides is amazing. It was so cool. We were doing laps around the kitchen, so we were timing it with a stopwatch on the phone, starting from like the part of the kitchen, going around out the door, up the corridor, or the hallway, should I say, up the hallway, round this, because the kitchen's got two doors, around the other door, and then back again. And we were doing laps with the scooter around that. It was ace. So we did that, and then we had a family meal together, obviously, and then opened presents properly and stuff. So it was nice. I went for about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and got back about 10:30. So it was a whole day. Hello, 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 everyone. I think George from the Fragrance Apprentice, 8 o'clock, I just saw, is premiering a video on risky kind of advertising for perfume. So if you wanna disappear in half an hour to watch that, completely understood. Funny comment. Bro, the best animalic skanky oud. I'm not a fan of skanky ouds, to be honest. I like the more cleaner ouds, personally. Ducita Paris have one called Oud Infini, which has got a bit of a funk to it. Very well blended. And if you like rose and oud, I would say that's one of the best ones. From Ducita, and it's called Oud Infini. And so, yeah. So this video is basically part 2 of my question answer video, because I filmed the first part of my Q&A a couple of weeks ago, and I tried filming the second part a couple of times where I was going to edit it, and I found that I can't do it without talking for 2 hours, firstly. And it's really hard to edit. It takes up all the memory on my computer, and it's impossible to get it saved. So I thought, well, I'll just do a live stream, because the people that don't want to listen can just leave the live stream, and that's cool. And it saves me crashing my computer and editing loads. So I thought, well, I'll just do it on a live stream. It just makes life way easier. But I'll read a few comments before I start the questions. Our neighbours got new scooters, and we know it. Whoosh and bang at the side of the house. Hello, I made a perfume with ingredients of 25% fragrance oil and 75% ethanol, but it was so strong that it brought me a headache, and it smells strong. Any advice? Try and make it at 10% instead if it's too strong, buddy. And if it's giving you a headache, just make it weaker. But if you're just buying like these cheap fragrance oils that like mimic other perfumes, like these little cloned things that you get that's meant to smell like, you know, Armani Code or whatever, and you just mix it with alcohol, they're all going to be crap. They're not going to be good. So, you know, and you don't really know what chemicals they're putting in there. That could contribute to why you're getting a headache too. So it's not a simple answer. Have you heard of Pellwall? Yes, I know Chris from Pellwall. I buy from them now and again, not very often. I get a small handful of synthetics from them. Hi Patricia, question, what is Frangipane? And Frangipane is a beautiful floral. It's kind of it's quite sweet floral. It's almost like, how would I describe it? Slightly marzipan-y, if that makes sense. It's this beautiful thick. I don't actually own a bottle of it. I don't have much oil, but I've a little sample. But it's like a very sweet, beautiful floral. It's very, very pretty. It's kind of a sweet floral. But the question answers, they're on here, so don't ask me anymore because I'll be here for hours. They're all set up. They're from last time. So this isn't like a live Q&A, just so people know I have got them written down. So, but I can't get through them on a normal regular video, so I've set it up so I can do it on a live stream. Feel free to ask more, but we'll just be here all night if you want to. It's up to you. Working on a green apple accord, any tips? There is one on the back of the book of Diary of a Nose by Jean-Claude Ellenay, and he tells you how to make a green apple accord. So there you go. I've just got into fragrances. How do I try lots of them on a budget? Small samples, buddy, samples. Don't go and buy bottles of everything because it's crazy. Okay, so we're gonna get into the questions. Like I say, I did part 1 a couple of weeks ago, and there was loads of them, so I didn't answer them all. And so this is part 2, and I'm still not going to answer them all. But I'm not doing part 3. This is it. So yeah, I've lined it all up so you can see. There you go. So the first question was, what makes a scent masculine, feminine, or unisex? And so for me, how I'm going to answer this is a masculine scent tends to use heavier notes. So think in terms of leather, tobacco, spices. You know, these kind of woody notes are all considered more masculine. A feminine fragrance might consist of things like rose, lily of the valley, peony, floral notes, jasmine, soft light musks, vanilla, fruity notes like peach, and those would typically be considered more feminine, coconut even. And unisex tends to strike a balance between the two, where they're not full-on heavy dark notes, but they're not super fruity floral either. And there's a balance between the two where, you know, society can't quite make up their mind whether it should be male or female, so it's generally unisex. The more correct answer is it's all nonsense. It's cultural conditioning. And so it's all it is really is identification with concept in the mind. So basically, you're born into a body, you're born into a world which has certain ways of doing things, and you're raised from a baby thinking that pink is for girls, blue is for boys, rose is for girls, you know, wood is for whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's cultural conditioning. It's what's considered the cultural norm, which is really just identification with concept. It's just thoughts in your head, basically. That's it. The scent itself has no gender. The scent doesn't say, I'm for a girl, and another scent goes, I'm for a boy. They don't do that. It's just a smell. It's the human mind which turns the smell into a concept and labels it then as male or female. And so really it comes down to a judging mind. That's it. It's identification with concept. The scent is not, like, no other animal on Earth would smell something and identify it with a gender. And if like an alien race, an ET advanced civilization were to come down and they were to smell perfume, I think they would would smell a smell, but they wouldn't label it. They wouldn't label and judge it as male or female, I don't think, because it's our cultural conditioning of our civilization. So for me, that's the best way to answer it, is we're just brainwashed into thinking that. And if you were born into a civilization that thought the opposite things, that leather and tobacco and oud and woods are feminine and rose is for boys, and you were brought up with that civilization, that will be completely normal for you, and you would just accept it. It's just how your brain's programmed and wired, which is conditioned. It's a conditioned mind. And so that's the first question. Can I send you a DM question about Pellwall? If you like. Lush have a fragrance called Frangipani. It's gorgeous, but I avoid it as it has almond oil. Okay, so the second question is, what are your favourite smells apart from perfume, and have you always been sensitive to smells? So with this one, I don't think I'm particularly sensitive to smells, to be honest. But I've always been picky. And so when I was a teenager, like from the age of 16 onwards, I was given fragrances for Christmas presents and birthdays and things, and most of you probably know that. Hi Henry from Germany, how are you doing, my friend? Hope you enjoy my thoughts on my wearing. I've not checked Instagram today, my friend, so I have not seen it, but I will look. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, I was given like designer fragrances for birthdays and Christmas, mainly from my sister and family and stuff for presents, and I never liked any of them. And that's not being a niche snob, that because I didn't know niche fragrances even existed. To me, like Paco Rabanne and Calvin Klein and Armani and all these high street designer stuff, they were like top brands to me. They were expensive to me. I didn't know any better. I just thought they were really expensive and they were the best thing out there. So to me, it was nothing to do with snobbery. I wasn't attracted to the way they smelled. Instinctively, I just didn't find them attractive. So I never wore any of them. They all got stuck in a drawer. So I've always been very picky, for as long as I can remember. And what are my favourite smells outside of perfume itself? I really like the smell of like wood shavings. So like sawdust, and like if you're in a wood shop carving, wood, or even chainsawing wood, or like just workshop kind of dusty wood kind of smell. That kind of smell is nice to me. And another smell I like is freshly baked bread. So bread that's just out of the oven where it's kind of still hot and it has that kind of fresh, doughy, kind of warm, bready smell. That's amazing. I love that smell. Another smell I really like is petrichor. So like just before a storm and you get that kind of dampness in the air because the rain's about to come down, but it's holding that, suspending that fine dust in the air. So you get that kind of damp dust smell just hovering in the air. That smell is amazing of petrichor. I love that. And another smell I quite like is, when you go into a petrol station to fill up fuel in your car, I quite like the smell of petrol. I don't go around sniffing fuel, but when you go fill up your car, that aroma of the petrol station in the air, it's not an unpleasant smell. I used to like it as a kid. I remember just finding it an interesting smell. So that's something that sticks with me, that I find that quite an interesting smell. Those are the immediate answers that pop in my head when I think of smells that I like outside of perfume, so to speak. I'm just reading a few comments. Hello from Bangladesh. Hello, my friend. Why do I love oud so much? Because oud is awesome. Rose was considered male. Yes, the Romans used to wear rose water. The Roman soldiers. Love sawdust smell too. Yes, petrichor is a very nice smell. So that's that question. Feel free to chime in if you like. Question 3. This is, excluding your own brand, what other brands most excite you? And so at the moment, not that many. I I admire Hans Hendley from Hendley Perfume. Whatever Hans puts out in the future, I will definitely check out. I think he's great, and a really genuine, awesome person too, which I think makes a difference. As well as his perfume being very well blended, is just a top guy. I just think he's cool. So Hans Hendley, whatever he does, I will check out. I think he does good stuff, and I admire him just on a personal level as well. Another one would be Rasse Fort from Fort Manley. Excited, whatever he does, I'm interested in. Those two really, for me at the moment, are the main ones. What are some good wood shaving smell fragrances? I'm not sure. I'll have a think. I would say oud wood, but I don't really like oud wood. To me, oud wood smells a bit like a hamster cage, but that's not quite the smell that I like. I'm not quite into the hamster cage. It's more the fresh kind of wood rather than a hamster cage sawdust. Not quite that smell. Because I used to keep hamsters as a kid, so oud wood actually reminds me a little bit of a hamster cage. But anyway. Okay. The next question. I wouldn't say albatross smells like wood shavings. That's more salty aquatic. She does have one that actually smells of cedar, but I forgot what it's called. It's in the Twin Peaks collection. If you look at the Twin Peaks collection of Matriarch, she's got one that's heavily based on cedar wood, and that smells like straight up like chainsawed cedar. It's crazy. So there's one, but it's very expensive, and I think it might be like not available anymore because I think it was a limited thing. I'm not sure. Okay, so the next question. Let me look at my. Hold on. Okay, so what is the best places to go for perfume conventions around the world? I only know two, and I've been to one of them. So they're both in Italy, and one is Ascent. So you can go to Ascent, and that's one of the major ones that happens every year. Not this year because of the virus. And the other one is Pitti, and Pitti I believe is in Florence, Italy, and Essence in Milan. I've only ever been to Essence, so I don't know what Pitti is like, but those are the two of the main major players in the fragrance convention things around the world. I'm sure there are more. Those are the only main two that I'm aware of. So if you know any more, feel free to leave them in the comments. Doesn't Imaginary Authors have one? Can't remember the name though. Cape Heartache has kind of a woodiness, like a cedar wood vibe with pine, with a strawberry note, but not totally woody. Chris Roussac Timber is a great wood shaving fragrance, a bit too expensive though. I love Santal 33 for cedarwood. Santal is sandalwood, isn't it? Interesting that the sandalwood smells of cedarwood. That's funny. CK the One in Black Bottle has a cedar scent reminiscent of a sauna. Ah, very nice. Okay, so question. I should point out, by the way, I'm just gonna have a drink of orange juice. Don't mind me. What do you think of Nasamato Pardon? I'm wearing it today. There you go. I sprayed it on today, so I'm actually wearing that. It's mainly it's patchouli mixed with vanillin, so synthetic vanilla and patchouli, which kind of makes this kind of what people talk about as being oud and chocolate. It's not, it's patchouli and vanilla. And yeah, it's nice. I enjoy wearing it. There's some kind of woody amber molecule things in there as well, but the main kind of core of it's patchouli vanillin. And I enjoy it. It smells very good. I am wearing it tonight. Don't mind me drinking like a brute without a glass. Sorry. My eldest son's dog is called Patch too. Finally saw my eldest, and after him nearly a year yesterday. I just bought Fateh Sultan Mehmed. Do you still wear this one? Yes, I do. I've not worn it in a little while, but it's one of my favourites. I really do enjoy it. It's a lovely fragrance. So, I think, just to let you know, I think that George from The Fragrance Apprentice has a video premiering in a couple of minutes. I think it's at 8 o'clock. I noticed it while I was resetting up the new live stream. And he's doing one on fragrances that have like risky kind of sexy commercials that might have been banned or something along those lines. And it's a premiering, so you can watch it afterwards, or you can leave this and go and watch that if you want. It's up to you. I just want to make you aware of it, so if you're watching me and you do want to catch that as it's premiering, then you can feel free to leave and head over to him. Bozhnikov is up next for me. Yes, Bozhnikov is awesome. He's discontinuing it though. I heard from Rasse that it will be discontinued eventually because the oud is limited for it, which is sad. So if you do want it, or if you really like it, I think maybe get a backup bottle because it's going to disappear. It's not going to be there anymore. Have you tried Zerjoff? I have not tried that particular Zerjoff, no. Hi, I'm a new subscriber and I have to say I'm really impressed by your knowledge. Was wondering if you like any good book about perfumes and would... The only ones I would recommend really are the Mande Aftel ones because they're really good for beginners and they're very basic and simplified. And you don't need fancy scales. She does everything in drops and it's just laid out very simple. And I think most self-taught perfumers will credit Mande Aftel to some degree for their initial inspiration. There's not really many good books on how to make perfume, to be honest. It's kept quite secret. You won't find... There's either like really hardcore chemistry books, which are really complicated, which don't actually tell you how to make perfume. They just go into the chemistry and the science of it. And then there's like really super basic ones, which is like 6 drops of this, 4 drops of that, 2 drops of that. There's no like proper like how to make perfume books out there that I know of that do it in a modern way that's like to make real modern perfume, so to speak. Pete, which is or a few of your favorite vanillas I would like to try? Okay, Henley Bourbon, yeah, that's a great one. The ones I own, I like Zerjoff Ivory Roots. You might find it a little bit more masculine leaning slightly. It's a spicy sandalwood vanilla. There's some good ones from Annick Goutal. The names escape me though. I think Amber something. I forgot it. Sorry, my memory's a bit fuzzy on the Annick Goutal. Someone might be able to write it in the comments. But there's a couple from Annick Goutal that are very good. What else? Spiritueuse Double Vanille by Guerlain is probably my favourite vanilla, which is just vanilla and cedarwood, really. Ambre Sauvage, yeah, that's the one. Thanks, Lily. That one's a very good one. That's kind of a spicy vanilla with... It's got pink pepper in it from memory, and from memory... I think it's got an orris kind of accord. It's been so long since I smelled it, my memory's not that crisp on it, but I remember I really liked it at the time. I did a review on it though, if you want to check it out. But yeah, there's a few good ones. Wow, I just saw your Ensar Oud review and see you live. Very good. What else do I like vanilla-wise? Let me think. I think those are the main ones that initially come to mind, to be honest. I mean, there's loads of good vanillas, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a lot of them. It's hard to remember them all because there's so many. Most people like Annie from Nishani. I've never tried that one. I've not smelled much from Nishane. Is it Nishane, or I can never pronounce the name properly. I know it's not. I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. I just don't know how you do it. Oh yeah, Coco Blanc. I forgot about that one. Cheers, Aaron. That one is very expensive though. I don't overly like recommend it to people just because it's expensive. If you can get it on a deal, it's good. Doesn't last that long. So kind of on me, it's like 3 to 4 hours now. I wear a full bottle of it. So it's $330. It's quite a lot, but it's a beautiful vanilla, and it's a natural vanilla as well. Shalimar's alright. I don't love it, but it's not bad. Yes, I still have Kiehl's. Kiehl's vanilla and cedar, but I don't recommend it because it's discontinued, so I don't think you'll find it anymore. But I still have a little bottle of it, and it's very nice. It's a very simple, woody, musky, very, very pleasant vanilla fragrance. Slightly Play-Doh-y, but very nice. But really, I think Spiritueuse du Bel Vanille by Guerlain is my favourite one altogether. That one, like, I can feel my brain kind of slightly melting into a puddle in bliss because it's so nice. I don't get that very often. But I don't own a bottle of it because it's expensive and it didn't last on my skin very well. Yeah, there's a couple by Eckart Tolle that were good vanillas. There's not just one. There is a couple of them. But Spiritueuse Double Vanille does last on some people's skin. It's just on mine, it wasn't great. I know a few people where it lasts like all day and night. So, like Lily's just written there that it's 12 hours on her. So that's, I got like 3 on me. So there you go. Funny. Okay, so what's the next question? Oh, we've answered that one already, haven't we? Okay, so the next question, I think this is from Lily. Here we go. So Lily wrote, if you had or were able to choose your next life, what would it be like? I have no idea, Lily. I don't know. I don't know. I would just hope it's better than this one. Like, less fear, less anxiety, more love, kinder, more connected to the universe, and do something that helps the world be a better place. You know, not someone that's selfish. I'd want to be trying to at least live a good life and make the world a little bit better. If I had to be born again in another body, ideally I don't think I'd want to be honest. But if I had to and I didn't have a choice, I would want to just live a good life and be kind and love everyone. I don't know how to answer it really. If you created a fragrance to represent pure love, what would it smell like? And to throw a wrench, rose is not allowed. So rose is meant to be the smell of an open heart, apparently. But I don't know what it would smell like. I've no idea. Tips for someone just starting: don't spend too much money because it's a rabbit hole. That's my tip. Start small and just see if you like it first. I don't think you can make a smell that represents pure love, to be honest. I just, it's so beautiful. I don't think you can't encapsulate that. If you only had to eat one thing for the rest of your life, what is it? Probably spaghetti with tomato sauce with a little bit of parmesan. But I've always liked that. I've always liked spaghetti and pasta and stuff. So for me, probably spaghetti with a tomato sauce and a little bit of parmesan cheese on top. It's just easy to eat and it's tasty and it's nice. Best and favourite thing to eat and cook now that you're vegetarian? I'm not technically a vegetarian. I stopped eating land animals, so I still eat fish, so I'm a pescatarian. But favourite thing to cook probably hasn't changed, because my favourite thing to eat before not eating meat was still spaghetti, so the only difference now is that I used to make spaghetti bolognese with beef mincemeat, and now I don't do that. So I'll either not have anything at all and just have the tomato sauce, or I'll use the soya mince that's made from soya, and it's like artificial fake meat, but it's soya based, and I'll fry that and then put that in, and then that's kind of like a substitute for the meat. Best occasions for using Tuscan leather? Every occasion. Whenever you like, buddy. Just wear it when you're in the mood. I don't think about it too much. Hi Robert, how you doing, my friend? So where are we at now? Hold on. What was I talking about? Food. Yeah, it's not really changed. Spaghetti's still my go-to, really. Hey Peter, happy holiday. Hi Chris, how you doing? Would you ever make a mint bait? I'm not really a fan of mint, buddy, to be honest. Probably not, no. I'm cautious about lavender because I feel it takes over, maybe too loud. Okay, so the next question is, you're able to create a planet. What is life like there? Hi Pete, I greet you from Tenerife. Do you plan to produce and sell Chambeau? No, it all sold out, my friend, sorry. It's sold out, so there's none left. Well, actually, I should be totally transparent. There is some left. So what I did was, because it's a limited edition, and I can never make it again, I was a bit scared of firstly overselling, because I saw Russian Adam do it with a Riche L'Adore, and he oversold Santal Galore of stock he didn't have, and it was a massive cock-up. I was scared of that happening to me, so I listed a little bit less than what I thought I had, just to make sure I'm totally safe. And also I thought if one breaks or leaks or doesn't get there or gets lost or something, I've got a backup just in case. So technically I've got 5 more. So they will go on sale again on the website, only 5 of them though, after 3 weeks or something. Once everyone's got their bottles and it's all safe and I'm happy that everyone's got it and it's all good, then there'll be another 5 on the website, but they'll go probably in a day. Well, they might not, but I mean, I had a lot of fragrance and they sold out in 48 hours or something, which is amazing. Thank God we finally have a similar taste when it comes to fragrance. I detest mint. I'm not a fan of mint fragrances. Do you like Dior Fahrenheit? Not really, no. I do like the smell of fuel stuff, but I'm not a fan of Fahrenheit. Hello from Ireland, my friend. How you doing, buddy? And so the next question, sorry, I got distracted with the comments. You're able to create a planet. What is life like there? Crack my neck a little bit. Oh my word, I'm getting stiff and hunched over. If I was able to create a planet, I'd probably make a massive mess of it. I don't think I'm intelligent enough, Lily. I'd make a cock of it. There wouldn't be any animals there. There would be no, to me it would be flowers and plants and trees and rivers, that kind of thing. I wouldn't... See, if you have life there, then you have to have death there. But then how would you make a planet without life? Because you need the whole ecosystem and biodiversity for the nature to work. Earth only works because we've got worms in the soil, and insects that pollinate the flowers, and all of these millions of animals actually are integral to the biodiversity of the Earth, which makes the Earth habitable in the first place. So it's out of my... I had no idea how you would make a planet, or it's just too far beyond me, Lily. Leave it to the universe, because the universe knows better than Peter. What is your best fragrance? Good question. What, like, best in my own, like, personal taste? Tuscan Leather's my favourite fragrance by Tom Ford. So, if you want best, then Tuscan Leather. Wouldn't have flowers without an... Exactly. It's all biodiversity, so I wouldn't make a planet, because I wouldn't know what I'm doing, and I'd make a massive mess of it. Have you picked up Travis picking on your guitar yet? I don't get the question. Have you picked up Travis picking on your guitar? Travis picking? Is Travis picking like a... Am I, like, stupid? Is that an artist or someone? If it's a person, I've no idea who it is. So sorry if I'm stupid. Recommend. The next question is so I'm getting this is hard to do because I keep looking at the questions on the live stream bit at the same time as trying to read this bit. Travis is in the Scottish band Travis. I don't know any Travis songs. I like them though. So I don't know what the question is probably. I might be stupid though. Recommend 3 books. That's the next question. Okay, I'm gonna hide this giant whole thing. There we go. Recommend 3 books. The first book I'm gonna recommend is Wim Hof. The Wim Hof Method. It's his brand new book. And it's a bloody good read. It is a method. I have never heard of it if it's a method, so I have no idea. Travis picking is a style of playing. Lovely. I have no idea. I have never heard of it. So, Wim Hof is known as the Iceman. He's got 26 world records. He's walked to the Everest base camp in his shorts and bare feet. He has swum 50 meters under Arctic sea ice with frozen retinas. He has also run a half marathon through the Namibian desert without drinking water. He has run a marathon in the Arctic Circle in his shorts without shoes. He's hung from 2 hot air balloons on a rope with 1 finger in winter. He's nuts. He's amazing. Wim de Hof. I'm doing his online course at the moment, his more advanced one. I've already done his normal one. So the other week I had my feet in a tub of water, ice water with like big blocks of ice in, and I had my feet in there for an hour. First of all, you start off like 20 minutes, then 30 minutes, then 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and you do it for every day for a week. And the last day I did it for an hour, which is tough. Having your feet in blocks of ice water for an hour is interesting, but you get acclimatized to it. And then I was doing the same thing with my hands. So after that week had finished, I was putting my hands in ice water, just my hands in a bucket of ice, basically. And at first I could only manage about 15 minutes and it was really painful. And then the next day I did, I think, 20 minutes and I got up to 30 minutes. So I did half an hour basically with my hands just sat still in a bucket of ice. That's painful, to be honest. It is painful. But why you do it is getting a connection between the deepest part of your brain and the different parts of your body. And so it's going into the deepest part of the middle core of the brain and creating these connections in the body. And it's kind of like mind over matter and connecting and creating pathways in the body. And also it strengthens your immune system, and it shows you what your mind is capable of when you put your mind to a task and you achieve it. It's like discipline, I suppose. So all of that is really good stuff. And so I've been doing a lot of the Wim Hof stuff, the deep breathing, the breathing is interesting. You can do the Wim Hof method breathing. So he got injected with E. coli endotoxin, which had been tested on about 16,000 people, and they all had like really severe flu symptoms and sickness and vomiting and illness, and like, you know, didn't react well to it at all. Wim Hof was injected with it and had no reaction, and it was gone in his system in 15 minutes. The doctors thought he was like a freak, and Wim was like, no, I can train anyone to do this. And the doctors didn't believe him. He was like, well, how long do you need? Like a year? And Wim was like, no, 4 days. So he trained a dozen people in 4 days, who then also got injected with E. coli. None of them had any reactions. They were completely fine. No symptoms. And the doctors were floored by that. And what it does is it alkalizes your blood. So if you do this breathing technique of his once a day, your blood becomes alkaline. It creates the correct chemistry in the body. And it does something so when a virus enters your system, it doesn't have this reaction in your blood where, I can't explain it very well, but it's like, it doesn't create this inflammation thing that causes you get sick. It doesn't create the inflammation. Your body just deals with it. And so somehow you basically, it strengthens your immune system by about 50%, and so you don't get sick the same. So I recommend doing is breathing for your own health, that you will get less sick less often, and when you do come into contact with a virus or a bug, it won't have the same reaction when it goes into your bloodstream. Your blood will annihilate it because it's got this perfect chemistry. So do the Wim Hof breathing. But his book is very inspiring. What he's done with his life is amazing, and he's teaching people the breathing and the cold exposure. He says a cold shower a day keeps the doctor away. So yeah, someone asked how often do I do an ice bath, Janice, and so I did for the part of the course. I did an ice bath every day for a week, for 20 minutes. But normally, like. Then I started doing after that, it was like once a week. But to be honest, for the last 3 weeks, I've not done an ice bath. But that's because I was doing like my feet in the ice and my hands. So I was doing that separately. So I wasn't doing an ice bath on top of that. And so I've not done one for a little while. But I've got ice in the freezer. And I'll be having an ice bath probably next week. So really, I would do one once a week for an ice bath. And but do a cold shower most days if you can. And in the book, he's talking about how lots of different people actually find that it helps alleviate things like depression. If you suffered with depression, his breathing and his cold showers can help people come off antidepressant tablets. They actually find they don't need them anymore. People with arthritis, that have very painful joints, if they do the ice baths, it actually starts to relieve the symptoms, and they feel less pain in their body because of it. It seems to help. Even people with things like Lyme's disease are talking about how that it's helping them feel much better and healthier. So it does seem to have a lot of health benefits. But his book is very inspiring. When he was born, interestingly, when his mother was giving birth, they thought she was only having one baby. They didn't know there was two in there. And so she gave birth to Wim's twin brother, and they thought she'd finished, and she felt weird afterwards, and she had pain inside her, and she was complaining that something's not right, and the doctors said, oh, it's fine, it's just phantom pain, and there's nothing there, and you're finished, and just relax. And they put her in like the waiting room, whatever you go into, and like serious time was going by, and she was like, no, something's really wrong. There's another baby in here. Like I know there's something. It's just wrong. And the doctors were like, oh dear, she's right, and this baby's gonna die. Like if this baby doesn't come out soon, it's dead. Like it's gonna suffocate. It needs to come out really quick. But his mother was a devout Catholic, and she screamed to God, and she said, God, if you make this child live, I'll make him a missionary. And then out pops Wim, and now he's a legend, and he's He's amazing. It's 26 world records later. So, but I'll be talking about Wim a little bit more on the next question, because the next question is why this video is on a live stream, because I tried to film it on a regular video and it's too long. If I'm going to talk about any of it at all, then I'll give you a bit of detail, but it'll take some time, so feel free to drop out, and if you want to watch it in parts, you can come back and catch up, or if you want, but it's going to be a long answer. But Wim plays into what I'll be talking about in the next question. Do we finish the... Oh no, that's the first book. I've got to recommend 3 books. I've been talking about 1 book for ages. This is why it's easier to do it on a live stream, because editing this is a nightmare. So the second book I'm going to talk about is Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth. So Eckhart Tolle is a spiritual teacher, and A New Earth is about the evolution of consciousness in the universe, and how consciousness itself is evolving through you, through the form, that you're not just the form itself. It's not just... Imagine all the animals that are evolving as species, evolving through time. Not just the animals are evolving, but actual consciousness itself is kind of awakening, evolving to itself. And so A New Earth is all about the evolution of consciousness, and how the Earth is going through a shift of going from egoic control of complete association with mind and ego and body, to a spiritual awakening which transcends the ego, transcends the thinking mind, and it's about the evolution of consciousness. It's a very good book. Funnily, I read an Eckart Tolle book probably about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe even longer, and I didn't connect with a single word he said. I wasn't interested, but I didn't have a spiritual bone in my body just a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Like all this stuff on my wall, if you look at my channel, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, none of this was here. None of it. Because I was... repulsed is a strong word, but almost very... I don't like religion. Still don't, to be honest, particularly. I think it causes problems. But none of this stuff was on my wall. I just wasn't spiritual. So it'll tie into the next question anyway. The next book I'm going to read, I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to recommend it. Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. If you're interested in a broader understanding of the reality that we find ourselves in, then I recommend following Joe Dispenza's work, listening to him on YouTube for free. You don't even have to buy his book, just listen on YouTube. It's totally free. You can listen to him for hours talking, and you'll absorb a lot of his knowledge. But I recommend following him or listening to him, taking your time just to have a listen, because it will change your understanding of why you're here and what you are, and the potential that you have inside yourself. But he has another book called You Are the Placebo, and another book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I recommend any of them. I've not read the other 2, but I know his work, and so I would say I would fairly familiar with what he teaches, so I would kind of have a good understanding of what he goes through in the books. And I've listened to hours and hours and hours of him on video, and I've done his online progressive workshop thing, his course. So Joe Dispenza, if you want like mystical experiences, having your mind blown by the universe, connecting to something greater than you, then he's your man at the moment. So those are the 3 that I would recommend personally. In general, on the spiritual theme, I would recommend Ram Dass, because he's my favourite spiritual teacher that I found. This is Be Love Now. His first book was called Be Here Now. Ram Dass passed away in December last year, but I wish I'd have met him, but there you go. Beautiful spiritual teacher. And he had a guru, and his guru was called Maharaji, Neem Karoli Baba. His picture is on my wall now. And that's him there. And so Maharaji was his guru in India. So I'll tell you a little bit about Ram Dass. Before he was Ram Dass, he was called Richard Albert, and I might be pronouncing it wrong. It's spelled with a P, but I don't know how to pronounce it. Richard Albert, but with a P instead of a B. But he was a Harvard professor, so he worked at Harvard University as a professor of psychology in the 60s, and he could fly a plane. He had a pilot's license. He had his own private plane. He drove fancy cars. He had a motorbike. He played the cello. He was very, very successful. Yeah, that's it, Lily. But I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it correctly. Very, very successful, and a Harvard professor at Harvard. But he was next door, to Timothy Leary. If you know who Timothy Leary is, he pioneered the LSD movement in the 60s, psychedelics. And so Ram Dass fell into that and did magic mushrooms and LSD with Timothy Leary in 1960s, had these mind-blowing experiences that changed his whole perception of reality, and as a psychologist he found it very fascinating that all his ego and his identity kind of dissolved, basically. But because of that, he got fired. He lost his job at Harvard, both of them, Timothy Leary and Richard. They booted out of Harvard. It was in the newspapers, and big deal at the time. And so Richard spent probably about 5 years through the 60s tripping his brains out on LSD and magic mushrooms, psilocybin, psychedelics, and going to these higher planes of consciousness, basically these spiritual planes of consciousness, and trying to expand his mind. And that's what they did in the 60s, isn't it? Eventually he realized he kept coming down. He could go back up, but he would come back down, and he went to India because he was like, well, I'm going to go to India and try and learn what all this spiritual stuff is. And there was a particular day so he didn't know who Maharaji was. He'd never heard of him, never met him in his life. Neem Karoli Baba is a great saint for anyone that doesn't know who he was, but he is a saint, essentially. He was one with God, if you want to, So the night before he met Maharaji for the first time, he was stood by a river, and he was looking up at the stars, and he was thinking about his mother that had just died, and she died of a ruptured spleen, and her stomach had swollen really big before she died, and he was thinking about that. The next day, he met Maharaji for the first time, didn't know who he was, didn't like him initially. People were touching his feet, and he thought that was kind of gross and weird. Like, who's this old Indian bloke, and people are touching his feet, and it was all kind of a weird scene. He didn't like it. He didn't trust him at all. He was very, as a psychologist and an American, and didn't gel well with him at all. Maharaji blew his mind because he called Ram Dass over, and Ram Dass kind of went, and Maharaji said, last night you were stood by a river looking up at the stars thinking about your mother who's just died. She had a really big stomach, and he spoke this in Hindi, which was translated for Richard. And then in perfect English, he said spleen, and Ram Dass's brain broke because he hadn't told anybody. Nobody there knew a thing about him. None of these people had ever met him before. No idea who he was. They had he hadn't told anybody in India that his mother had died. Nobody knew, especially that it was from a spleen, or where he was the night before, and that he was looking at the stars thinking about her by a river. Nobody knew that. And as a psychologist, as a trained psychologist, his brain literally broke. He just broke down and started crying. He just cried because he didn't understand, and he was like, he's connected. He knows something. Like, how does this old Indian man wearing a blanket sat on a wooden box at the foot of the Himalayas know that? His brain broke. So that's how he became Ram Dass. Maharaji took him in, and he went through meditation, purification, breathing, correct food, all this kind of stuff, and changed his name to Ramdas. And his whole life, he was basically, Maharaji was his guru. And at the end of Ramdas's life, the main teaching that Maharaji gave him was to love everybody, to love everyone, feed people, serve people, and to remember God. And Ramdas at the time said, I can't love everyone. I can't love everyone. He had a lot of, like, he looked at the people there that were around Maharaji and he hated them all. Like, he just couldn't stand them all. And Maharaji said, love everyone. And Ramdas said, I can't love everyone. And Maharaji just leaned in and said, love everybody. But at the end of Ramdas's life, he did love everyone. Like, he was like the embodiment of love. Like, he just loved everything. He could look at the wall and be in love with the wall, because to him it was like all God. I mean, it's the transformation that he went through was quite incredible, but a beautiful person. So if you're interested about the miracles of saints, then this is a good book, Love Everyone by Parvati Marcus. This is basically a compilation of hundreds of stories of people that actually spent time with Neem Karoli Baba, Ramdas's guru, and experienced firsthand some of the miracles. I'll tell you one of them if you want, if you don't mind. There was a married couple that went to the ashram, the temple where Neem Karoli Baba was, and the wife, completely in love with God, basically. She was very, very spiritual. The husband, not so much. And so about a week went by, and the husband felt nothing for Maharaji, no love at all. At this point was convinced that his wife had been taken by a cult, and that all this crazy stuff was just a cult. And he was seriously thinking about leaving his wife, because his wife was just completely in love with God and just wanted to be around this guru all the time, and he wasn't feeling it at all, and he just thought it was all weird and kind of gross, people touching his feet, and like it's just weird. And so at the end of this week where they were going to leave, he made an excuse to his wife the last day and said, I'm not going to go to the temple today. Didn't tell his wife why or where he was going. He just said, I'm going to stay in bed. I don't feel well. He made an excuse. I don't feel well. I'm going to stay in bed. I'm not going in today. So the wife left to the ashram to be with Neem Karoli Baba. The husband went for a walk by the river that runs through that town, and he walked along the river, bearing in mind he's not religious, he's not particularly spiritual, he's not quite sure on even God, but his wife is totally very, very spiritual. And he does something that he's never done before. He actually prayed to God, which he'd never done in his life. This is a story detailed in this book, by the way. And so he's talking to God by this river, and he says, God, who's this weird old Indian guy? Who is he? I don't trust him. My wife's joined a cult. I feel like I have to leave my wife. And he was just sad that his wife had been, brainwashed into a cult, and what's he going to do, and who is this man? And then this thought came into his head that he was like, if he only had faith, he wouldn't need miracles. And he thought about that, and he was like, okay, God, give me a miracle because I have no faith. And he went back to the house, back to the hotel. Nothing happened. The next morning, he went to the temple. He was going to tell Maharaji what he thought of him, that he's a cult leader and full of shit, and he's going to leave his wife and just going to have it out with Maharaji. So he gets to the temple. Maharaji's not there, but the apple, people offer the guru fruit apples, and basically the guru picks it up and then hands it back to people. And that's called prasad, because when a holy person touches the food, it's blessed, and then it's offered it back to people, and then they eat it, and it's kind of blessed food. They call it prasad. But an apple had fallen off the wooden bench, and so this man's on his hands and knees, because that's just the polite thing that you do, and he picks up the apple to put it back. At this very second, Maharaji bursts out of the door and stands on the guy's foot. On his hand, as he's picking up the apple. And so the scene is that this guy that can't stand people touching a guru's foot because it's gross is on his hands and knees with his hand out with the guru's foot on top of him like that. yes, it's FragranceView, but the question was recommend 3 books, and I'm recommending a book rich, so that's why. So the guru's foot is on his hand, and Maharaji says, "Where were you yesterday?" And he starts playing with the guy, and he was like, "Were you riding a horse?" And the guy's like pissed off because his hand's under the guru's foot, and he goes, "No, I wasn't riding a horse." And then Maharaji plays with him and asks all these things, were you doing this, were you doing that? And he goes, "No, no, no, no." And then he gets really quiet and moves right close to his face and says, "Were you by the river? Were you talking to God?" And the guy gets really quiet. And then he goes, "Did you ask him something?" And then he starts tugging the guy's beard. And he goes, "Did you ask God something? Did you ask him a question?" And the guy is having a mental breakdown because he realizes this is his miracle. How did that old Indian man know that he was by a river talking to God, asking for a miracle? Like he had the same thing as Ramdas. His brain broke, and he realized that everyone that was around him had had a similar experience. And then, like, it changed his life then. Like, his heart opened up, and he just felt, love, and it's quite amazing. So anyway, if you're interested in saints, that's a good book. I didn't know you had been asked. Deepest apologies. You don't have to say sorry, Rich. It's all good, buddy. How was your Christmas anyway? Did you have a good Christmas? Did you eat well? I ate loads of food. I got quite stuffed. I was bloated afterwards. I ate so much. And for dessert, we had... everyone else had pavlova, but I don't really like pavlova. It was what they call a Yule log, chocolate Yule log. I'm not a fan of chocolate, but I ate a bit of it with chocolate ice cream. Häagen-Dazs chocolate ice cream with like vanilla ice cream. So I had that for dessert. And everyone else was having, I think it was a sticky toffee Christmas pudding and pavlova. But I don't like sticky toffee Christmas pudding either. Oh, let me just stretch my knees. Ate way too much. Christmas was good. I ate loads and was stuffed and bloated. I got a sandwich toaster. Oof. Okay, I'm going to have a little swig of orange juice. We've only got one question left. Thanks for the stories and books recommendations. You're right, Raj, my buddy. How are you doing, my friend? I hope you had having a good holiday season. Don't like chocolate. I don't mind eating... I like white chocolate. I'm not a fan of regular chocolate that much. But I'm not a fan of chocolate cake, really. I'm not that into it. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm funny with food. I like white chocolate. If you gave me like a bar of white chocolate, I gobble that down. But I'm just not a massive fan of cake in general, really. So the next question was the question that I really struggle to answer, and not everyone will want to listen to it, which is why I thought, well, I've tried to film this. I said it at the beginning of this live stream. I've tried to film this video as an actual video where I was going to edit it and everything, and I realised I can't do it without talking for ages. So I thought, well, it's too big to edit, so if I do it on a live stream, if people get sick of it, you can just leave and don't have to watch, and it means I don't have to edit it and break my computer because I don't have enough memory to edit it. So it's I could give you a very short answer, but I feel like it would, for the people that do care, for the people that are interested genuinely, I think a little bit of detail and context is more helpful. So I feel like for the kind of question it is, I might as well say it properly. Anyway, beautifully told. So my sister's here. I kind of wish you weren't, Sophie. No offense. So the next question, which is the last one, but it's going to be a long answer, is this one. And you can see why I'm struggling to answer it. Well, the answer is no, obviously. So I was asked, would you say you are now enlightened? And if so, do you believe you have to work on enlightenment, or does it come when you're ready? The answer is clearly no, I'm not enlightened. However, none of this was on my wall 2 years ago, and I didn't believe in God 2 years ago, and I had no spirituality 2 years ago. Something's happened to me. And I'm pretty honest. I don't make shit up. I don't lie about stuff. And excuse my language, but I'm gonna tell you like what's happened to me for this to happen the best way I can, but also I'm gonna answer the question. So the answer is no. I do not consider myself enlightened. I realize how unconscious I am, and I've got loads of flaws, and I've got a mind that's very hard to control, and I'm working on my own consciousness now. Whereas before, I was completely unaware that I needed to do anything because I was just completely unconscious. Now I have at least an understanding of I'm not who I thought I was, and that's at least a start, but I'm trying to be a better person. So the next part of the question is, if so, do you believe you have to work on enlightenment, or does it come when you're ready? This one I can answer you. So after this, I'm going to tell you my own experiences, which is why I've got this stuff on my wall. Before I knew any of this stuff, like, this is new to me. All this stuff is in the last year and a half. And so, okay, so I'll give you some examples of real people in the world that I consider to be enlightened, and I'll tell you a brief bit of their story. So Eckhart Tolle, the guy that I recommended you a book by, Eckhart Tolle I consider to be enlightened personally. Now, Eckhart Tolle put no effort in this lifetime, in this experience of his body, of who he is now, didn't put any effort in. No spiritual practice, no religion, nothing, diddly squat. However, he was very depressed. He was depressed, and he had a horrible voice in his head that was very mean to himself. And he suffered, like really suffered. And he got to the point where one night he was in his bed and he said to himself, I can't live with myself anymore. A suicidal thought. He couldn't live with himself anymore. That's how bad it was, the voice in his head. And he recognized in that moment that there was two of him. There was one that can't live with himself and the one that's living with himself. Do you know what I mean? He had this realization that there seems to be two of him. And then he did something really clever. He recognized that if there's two people in here, well, maybe only one of them is actually real and one of them is unreal. In that realization, a voice in his mind told him, resist nothing, and it dragged him into a black hole, and he disappeared into it. When he came back, that voice in his head had gone, vanished, not there anymore, just clear, beautiful, empty space, spaciousness, awareness, presence. The voice had gone. He was completely freed of his mind. Now you can think when you need to, you can talk when you need to, but when you can stop and it's completely quiet, there's no monkey mind going, la, 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 judging everything, label everything, criticizing things, like all of that's gone. And he recognized the aliveness in everything. He could look at this wall and sense the presence, the aliveness, the energy of it. That everything was sacred and divine and had all the energy of consciousness, even in, so to speak, inanimate objects like a table or a coffee mug or something. Like, he felt the aliveness in it. And so he's someone I consider to be enlightened, which is what this book is about, the evolution of consciousness, that you are consciousness, essentially. That his teaching is that you're not your body, you're not the thought in your head, you're not the mind, you're consciousness, essentially, which transcends all of that. And so he put no effort into becoming enlightened. He just suffered, and his suffering triggered his awakening. That's one example. The second example I can give you is Ramana Maharshi. I've got a picture of him. This is Ramana Maharshi. He's another amazing great saint. And so Ramana Maharshi he put no effort into becoming enlightened at all, the same as Eckhart Tolle. Nothing, no work in this lifetime. But when he was about 15, he had a sudden panic that he was about to die. And what he did, interestingly, was he laid on the floor and played it out like role play. He made his body very, very stiff, held his breath, and went through the process of dying. Realized, well, he's dead. His body is. He said, "Okay, my body is dead, but I still am. I am still. So who is left after the body is dead? Well, I must be the spirit. I must be the soul. The soul is eternal." And then, poof, he was just completely, instantly liberated, free, boof, enlightened. At the age of 15, with absolutely no spiritual effort at all. It just spontaneously happened. And then he spent years in samadhi. Samadhi is a deep state of meditation. I wouldn't even call it meditation. What's going on here? It's a deep state where you're no longer connected to your body. Imagine floating in a void of nothing, where your body doesn't exist anymore. It's just not there. You're just pure awareness, pure being. Essentially, that's the best way I can describe there's levels of samadhi. Essentially, you're not your body anymore. You're in that pure state of pure consciousness, pure awareness. There's no awareness of your physical body at all. He spent years in samadhi and eventually kind of acclimatized to normal life again, and moved to a hill called Arunachala and stayed there for the rest of his life. And he had a following of people, and he was a very, very pure saint. Anyone was allowed to... He made it accessible for anyone, whoever you are, the poorest person, the most unworthy anyone could go and spend time with him, even at any time, night or day. He was very, very, even if it was 3 o'clock in the morning and you wanted to speak to him, he was there for you. And food, he wouldn't eat a grain of rice more than anybody else. All the portions had to be equal. So he couldn't have special treatment. Everyone had to be equal. He was just very, very pure, very, very kind. And interestingly, when he talked about his personal experiences, he described that when his physical body, he's not his body. This is hard to explain, but when his physical body is asleep, he is not. What he is doesn't sleep. He's the awareness, the pure being, all of this. He just is it. He's not his body anymore. He's liberated, free from it. So when his body is asleep, he's still completely aware of everything that's going on around him. Just completely aware. He literally never sleeps. And he described that when he walks, he doesn't feel the weight of his body. To him, the experience of walking somewhere is like floating through the sky. To him, it's just like floating through space or the sky. There's no weight there, interestingly. So you can see... Sorry if my stomach's making noises, if you can hear that. It's because I'm drinking orange juice. So you can see... lucid dream. Not really. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, because I don't understand it fully myself. It seems like there's an underlying reality to the universe, which you ultimately already are, but it gets covered up by the mind. And the mind, we get associated with mind, with ego, with I am such that we limit concepts to ourselves. When you drop your identity, when I am nothing, essentially, to me, I kind of see it like when the consciousness is... There's different ways... How do I explain this? I think, from my understanding of reading a lot of material, there seems to be different levels of enlightenment. So with this question, what Ramana Maharshi was is the supreme liberation. That's like the you can't get more liberated. Like, he will never ever be born again in a body. And what he is beyond time and beyond space. beyond the world. Like, he's like the substratum of the universe. In the Vedas, it would be called Brahman, or the Para-Brahman. And for anyone that follows Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, he refers to that same place as the unified field, the place beyond space and time with no form that connects everything in the universe that's physical. He was that. So is Joe, but like not completely the whole thing, but he recognizes that he is that. Everybody is. So he is Brahman. He is that void of, he's everywhere. Like, there was another saint called Nisargadatta Maharaj, and he describes the same thing, that what he is doesn't sleep, and it's at every point in time and space across all dimensions, and that if he puts his awareness in something, he can experience the consciousness of that object or person. So if he looks at a squirrel, he can feel the consciousness, the awareness of the squirrel. He can look through the squirrel's eyes and experience what it's like to be the squirrel. Like, he's everywhere and everything. You're never born again, because you're the whole. You've merged into the whole thing. For me, how I would make that as an analogy is, if you imagine the concept of an individual soul, imagine it surrendering itself to God, and in surrendering itself to God, it merges into it. So imagine like a droplet merging into the ocean. That droplet no longer exists because it's just merged into the ocean. There's only ocean left. And so when the separate self merges into the true self, only the self remains. And so to me, it's like the soul surrenders itself and becomes one with God. And so then at that point, only God exists, or only the self exists. So what I'm saying is, there's no individuality. When you look at the picture of that person, there is no separate individual that anymore. That, like, we have an identity with I am a body, I am my mind, I am the thoughts in my head, I'm something, I'm someone with concepts and attachments. He's got no personal identification with form and no desire for anything. He doesn't desire anything. He's just everything. He's just merged with that. He's just liberated. Now, the enlightenment that Wim Hof has, that Joe Dispenza has, is a different kind of enlightenment. That's what I would say is enlightened to one consciousness, to the spirit, to having your vision change, to having mystical experiences, to realizing the nature of reality is not what you thought it was, that we're all connected, that it's one consciousness, that the consciousness is shared. That can be a direct experience. And so Wim Hof has seen his own chakras as electrical spheres of energy in his body, and he experienced, so Wim Hof's experience, the Iceman, here you go, Wim Hof, he experienced his consciousness, the sense of himself suddenly was outside of his body. Like, he felt his I-ness was outside, all around his body. He described that it felt like he was a 30-foot tall Buddha, as big as a house, and it was all sort of him, so to speak, that his consciousness was no longer restricted to his body, but it was just everywhere. That was his experience of enlightenment. He recognized it's all one consciousness and we're all sharing it, essentially. And your vision changes, so he can see energy or light around living creatures, living, animals, trees, humans, plants. They all emit a light and energy. So your vision changes. And so yeah, he's someone that I would say is enlightened, not necessarily to the point of never being born again, of like the supreme liberation of Ramana Maharshi, but that's enlightened to like a huge degree that not very many people on earth reach. The same as with Dr. Joe Dispenza. Like, Joe Dispenza's experience leaving his body as an awareness and traveling through other dimensions and mystical experiences, and just communicating with 9-foot tall beings of light, like angelic beings, like, and understanding the nature of time is not linear, like crazy shit. I mean, it's mental. So there's like different levels of enlightenment, but there's also, I can tell you, Ramana Maharshi said there's two ways to be enlightened. The first way is self-inquiry, of asking, who am I? And in asking who am I, when you ask that to yourself, whatever the thought in your mind says of the answer, you say to yourself, to whom does this thought arise? And when the mind says me, you say, who am I? And it creates this loop where the mind actually can't get out of it because it can't answer it. Eventually, Ramana says that the mind sinks into the heart and dies. Do you know how the analogy of I said that the drop merges into the ocean and dissolves and it's gone? That kind of happens. The mind ultimately isn't real, it's an illusion. And the mind sinks and dissolves and it's gone and you're liberated. That's one method of being enlightened. The other method, he said, was complete surrender to God. So he says God is real, there is a God. And if you surrender completely to God, you can also be enlightened, you can be freed. So that's Ramana Maharshi's definition of 2 ways of becoming enlightened. So there you go. With Wim Hof, I'm going to show you a clip. And I'm going to play it for you now. And have a listen to Wim.
So all the chakras.
What do you mean you saw them?
You know, lights.
Yes.
I saw them all.
You saw them?
Oh yes. Oh, no problem. It's all there. It's electricity, and once you are able to manipulate the nervous system pneumatically, you're able to activate. It activates. Boom, 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 and they become visual. It's nothing esoteric about it. It's there.
Can you describe to me what when you say you saw the chakras? What were you? Where were you seeing them? You were closing your eyes.
You close your eyes, you see it all. It's a very beautiful, penetrating yet very soft too light, and it's beautiful. It's 3-dimensional, and you transform inside. The body becomes electric. You feel it, and it's amazing. It's amazing. But like anything else, at a certain moment after years, we get bored with it. You get bored. I got bored. Like, hey, there is more. I got into these techniques and I saw it all, and I could. The noise in the brain, it changes 3 times. And you get the 1,000 bells. That's the Sahasrara, as we know in yoga. Yeah, that's how I say here. Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipuraka, Anahata, Vishuddhi, Akya, Sahasrara, Brahmarandra, Samadhi. And then you got these layers of the Samadhi.
Wim is describing the tattoos that are on my arm of the chakras, and you're saying that through deep meditative techniques achieved through controlled breathing, you can physically experience these archetypal and essential energies, which a lot of people that use the scientific type of language that you use would disregard as nonsense. But I'm very curious as to how you, for your own personal mission, through your own personal yogic journey, have discovered information that has been written about, has been spoken of before, that when we talk of the yogis and the rishis in Vedic literature going into states of consciousness and coming back with new information about how to control the body's energy systems, it seems to me that you are doing this again now.
There was still a lot of confusion until I got into the cold water. And there I found a connection. And then I found a connection that the breath was able to make me more powerful, using the cold as a stressor to learn to equalize the power. I could stay for longer and longer. At a certain moment, I could stay all the night out in shorts in freezing temperatures and feel good. That is the power of breath. Breath is the life force. Only you have to connect it with your consciousness, with your awareness. You will. It's like a baby, a little baby, slags. There's nothing wrong with it, but still not able to walk. It needs neurological connection. So we need neurological connection with the breath in order to elevate this consciousness, this awareness, perception.
So hopefully you found that interesting. That's Wim Hof, the Iceman, describing obviously the chakras in the body, and one of his experiences of, I mean, it's crazy to, like, me 2 years ago, I didn't believe in any of that. It was all crazy nonsense to me. So, getting into more of the question, like why this question was asked in the first place, is because I've been fairly open in describing some experiences that I've had personally myself directly. And so I'm going to share them with you now in the order that they happened, so you understand why I've got this stuff on my wall and why I've changed, so to speak. Now, I'm only going to tell you direct experiences that I know are real because they directly happened to me. Anything else to me is a bit speculation, like you're trusting other people. That's fine. What I directly experienced is fact for me, so I can share that, and I will share that with you. And maybe it'll help someone. To be honest, I'm not even sure I'm meant to talk about it, because as a fragrance brand, and I've got my own perfume brand, I feel like talking about this stuff is like, I could lose subscribers, people could think I'm nuts, people could think I'm making it up. Like, a lot of fear is in my head about why, like, this is a bad idea to talk about it. But at the same time, I went from being absolutely convinced that my atheist view was correct. Now, I'm not trying to make anyone believe in God. I don't care like what anyone believes in. It's completely cool, whatever you want to do. But I'm just saying, from my perspective, I went from believing all of it was horseshit, not believing in God. All of this stuff was kind of like polar opposites. I don't like any of it. Do it on Spirit View. It was asked on here, buddy, though. It was a Q&A. You don't have to listen, Rich. Nobody has to listen. That's why I'm doing it on a live stream too. If you don't want to listen, just, mute it. I'm sharing it with an audience because it was asked, basically. If you don't want to listen, then feel free to not listen. But it was asked, so I'm going to tell it. So you can see that talking about it is a little bit risky. Like, even like Rich saying, do it on another channel because I don't want to listen to it. Like, I'm aware that it sounds crazy, and I'm aware that some people judge it and don't want to hear it. So I'm in an awkward position myself, but I'm going to share what happened to me. So the first experience was about 15 years ago. Well, I mean, I feel like I have to speak it here. If I don't say it, I feel like, if I don't share what I know, I feel like I have a truth because I know what happened to me that I'm not sharing with anybody. To me, that feels selfish when I want people to understand that they're more than what they thought they were. That you can connect to something greater than you. Like, that's, to me, is important to share. Not everyone wants to hear it, but the few that need to hear it, the few that want to, I think it's worth it for them. And if I lose subscribers or my business suffers, then at least it might have helped somebody, because I can recommend you people. I'm not enlightened, but I can point you in a good direction. So what happened to me about 15 years ago, this is how it all seems to start with me. Bearing in mind, atheist my whole life, did not believe in God. To me, it was like cosmic Santa Claus. You believed in God because you were afraid of death, and it was like a comfort. To me, it was a comfort. It was actually kind of a naivety to me. I don't want to offend religious people, but to me, I felt a little bit sorry for people that were like that, because to me at the time, it felt naive. I was very much quantum mechanics, physics, science, Big Bang Theory. None of it needs God. Like, I just didn't have a spiritual bone in me. I didn't like it. It was just messy to me. I saw religions as causing a lot of problems, and there was no evidence for it. I want evidence. That's how I thought. It turns out I was given evidence later. But So that's my background up until like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, about that. My whole life atheist. I had a girlfriend that was very strongly Christian, and she had the experience of going to church once, and she had this experience of feeling the presence of God that was so powerful it made her cry. When we were in bed together that night, she realized she couldn't talk to me about it, and it made her quite upset because she knew that I thought it was nonsense. I thought it was bollocks, because to me it was just her imagination. And I was like, well, yeah, you think that you had that experience, but it's just your imagination. It's just your brain. So she dumped me. She left me. Understandably, she couldn't share a massive part of her life with me. And she left me. I had an offshore supervisor. He was South African, religious. I used to have debates with him in the dive shack on our off time that God is nonsense and you don't need God. And I was telling him about quantum mechanics and physics and string theory, and like I was super into geeky stuff like that. And I was, there's no need for God. That's my whole life. I thought that. So that's my background, okay? So just bear that in mind, because this is a big shift to go through, isn't it? So 15 years ago, I've just got an email. Okay. So 15 years ago, I saw a big ball of orange light appear above the house opposite my old family bedroom. My old family bedroom, I had a bed under the window, big long window, and there was no curtains because I cut my curtain pole wrong. Instead of cutting bits either end, I cut it off center on one side, so the join was off the middle. Eventually, the weight of the curtains broke the pole, basically, so I had a few months where I had no curtains. So one night, I was laying in bed about 1 o'clock in the morning, but awake with my eyes open, and a ball of light just went poof, out of nothing, silent. This is a clear night, there's no rain, there's no storms, nothing, it's just clear, normal clear night. Big ball of light above the road, hovering above the house, out of nothing, instantly quiet. I bolt out of bed, stare at it in the window, and say, "What the?" and swear loudly, and it vanishes, just gone. I could have chucked a rock at it, it was that close. It lit up my bedroom. If there was something in it, it would be looking at me, because it was like direct line of sight. I ran into my mother's bedroom at the time and was like, "Did you see that?" And she was like, "Yeah, it just lit up my room," but her curtains were closed. She had these net lace curtains, but it still lit up her bedroom. And I was like, "I just saw a UFO." It was nuts. Anyway, that was the first time I saw something weird. Years later, this is December 2018, because I've got it written in a book. I started journaling this when it was happening to me. December 2018, I took Teddy for a walk in the moors, middle of nowhere, just hillside at night time, and a big ball of light was hovering above the sky. And at first I thought, as you do, that it's just a plane flying towards you with its headlights on, but there was no sound and it wasn't moving, and I was just kind of watching it for a little while. A blob, I can't describe it very well, but some kind of sphere or orb. It wasn't lit up, but it was an object, a ball, round thing, flew out of the big ball of light and started flying slowly across the sky to the right. Now I'm like, this is not a plane. So I start following this little, whatever, I don't even know what it is, just a little ball of something, and it's flying off to the right, a very small thing, a small object. As I'm watching it move, this big glowing ball of light in the sky starts to move. It starts to drop slowly down to the ground. It gets, say this white bar is the crest of the hill, it gets to about halfway and stops here, stops, and then follows the ball this way. I'm convinced I'm seeing a UFO now. And so that was it for the first time. I went back the next night with a camera to see if I could see it again. Nothing. Went back the next night, but I didn't take a camera because I thought, well, I'm never going to see it again. But I had it in my mind the whole time thinking about it. And I kept looking to the side, and boomf, this light was just there. And I was watching it for a while, and there was no sound, and it wasn't really moving much. And then a big Boeing passenger plane started flying between me and this, whatever this light is. And as this, it's a proper big Boeing 747, all lit up, really noisy, flying low between me and this object. As the plane flies between me and it, this ball that I'm looking at, this ball of light, starts to move. It starts to fly to the right, noticeably flying to the right, and it shrinks. So say it's this big, it goes whee to a tiny little pinprick dot and then dips below the hill. I've just seen something fly to the right and change size and disappear while this plane's flying past. Then it comes back up big again and just sits there for a while, and then it starts to kind of wobble to the left a bit. And I say out loud, if this thing comes towards me, I'm going to myself, because now I'm totally convinced this is definitely a UFO. It's definitely not normal. It's not a plane. And it's like it heard me because it disappeared after that. I was into this guy called Stephen Greer. I was very into UFOs for years. Even as a kid, I was like looking out my window, imagining UFOs up there. Like, always fascinated with that. And so Stephen Greer was someone I was listening to, and he was talking about you could meditate and put a thought out, and that they pick up on consciousness and they can come. And so I'd never meditated in my life at that point. So I started going back to this hill at night time after dark with my dog, and I would sit on this wooden bridge and meditate for about an hour with my eyes closed, putting a thought out that I wanted to connect to this light. And it appeared time and time again. I did it loads of times for about 6 months. It kept coming back, sometimes multiple times. And weirdly, like sometimes it would appear out of nothing, just poof, in the sky, and then poof, vanish. There was one time it flew across the sky. I'm not kidding. It just started flying. I opened my eyes. It was flying across the horizon from right to left. In my head, as a thought, I said, I can't tell if you're a plane. Can you give me a sign? As a thought in my head. I didn't even speak it out loud. The second that thought finished, it vanished. Now, I'm not talking lights off. I'm talking about it disappeared. It was not there anymore. It was gone. In that moment, I knew that these, whatever that is, can hear the thought in my head in real time and act on it immediately. I knew that it is one consciousness. It's shared consciousness from a direct experience. So I'm like, oh, this is a mind trip. This is crazy. I took my mother 3 times because I was like, I need someone else to see it. So I took my mother with me. She saw it twice. One of the times it didn't come, but 2 of it did. The last time I took my mother, this is one of the last times I went, it appeared out of nothing in a clear sky. It just went poof, just instantly, just there. And we both saw it appear instantly, silently, just poof, just out of nothing. I had a laser pen. I did a big circle with a laser pen around it, and then poof, gone, vanished. Just again, it's not like it turned its lights off. I mean, it's just not there anymore. It's gone. And that was quite exciting. It came back a minute later and was much bigger and brighter and sat above the hill for a while and then disappeared. I took pictures of it. This is what it looks like. This is what I was seeing. And it came back time and time and time again. One of the last times I went, this is a close-up when I zoom in. One of the last times I went, I knew for a fact it could hear the thought in my head. There was no doubt about it. I mean, there was sometimes I was telling it I was going there before actually getting in the car, and it would be waiting for me when I arrived. Like, I knew it can hear the thought in my head. So I sat down and meditated, and I was speaking to it while it was there, just floating above the hill. This is what it looks like. I took another picture. That's not edited. That's exactly from the camera as is. I've no idea what that orange light thing around it is, but that's just how it came out in the camera. So I was sat and I was sending it a message and I was speaking to it and I was saying, you know, we're destroying our environment, we're cutting down the rainforest, we're polluting the oceans, I'm really worried about the earth, and I said it's not our fault. We're just making a mess of it, and we've got governments that aren't, you know, they're not really got our best interest, and they're more concerned about control and money, and it's quite corrupt, and the people in charge are really not very good people, really. Like, we're not doing enough to help the world. You know, we're not very wise. But then I communicated to it, but with all that destruction and all that horribleness, there's really amazing people here too. That we've got like beautiful people and loving, kind people and inspirational people and kind people, and I was poets and musicians, and then I thought to myself, I'm just going to send it love as an emotion. I'm just going to send it human love. And I thought, if this is the first human it's interacting with, I've no idea where it's from or what's in it, but if it's the first human it's interacting with, I'm going to send it love, because that's the best thing I can think to do. So I start just giving it love from my heart and just streaming love to it. And it was so moving to me. It sounds ridiculous. I had tears in my eyes, honestly. I was crying, sat on the floor, looking at that ball of light, crying, sending it love, because I didn't know what else to do. I knew it could hear my thoughts. I was trying to tell it that the world's a mess and we're screwing it up and we're wrecking the environment, but we've got beautiful people here. As well as, horrible people, we've got beautiful people and inspiring people, and I was just crying, sending it love. As ridiculous as that sounds, that's what happened. I stopped going eventually, because, what am I meant to do with it? It was fascinating that it could hear the thoughts in my head and give me actual feedback, like disappear and things. And, I filmed it on video. There's a clip here if you want to watch the video. Hold on. It's just on top of the hill. So you can see I took pictures of it, I filmed it, my mother saw it. I'm not bullshitting, I don't make stuff up. That's exactly what happened. So at this point in my life, bearing in mind I'm still atheist, I still don't believe in God, I'm not spiritual, but I understand that somehow consciousness is shared and that there's beings out there that can hear the thoughts in your head. That's fact to me now. After those experiences, it's just fact, because I directly I said in my head, give me a sign if you're not a plane. The second that thought finished, it vanished into thin air, just gone. If that doesn't show you something, like I knew reality's not quite what I thought it was. So I started researching consciousness on YouTube. Consciousness. I wanted to understand it. What's consciousness? So what is this stuff? From that point, I started finding these kind of people. I'd not taken any of this stuff in, but I'd read his book 7 or 8 years ago and didn't get anything from it. It wasn't interesting. I didn't connect to it. Didn't mean anything to me. Now, when I listen to him, I completely get it. I could listen to him for hours. So I started finding these people researching consciousness. Eckhart Tolle was one of them. I found out about the Vedas. Wim Hof described it in that video. Before I knew who Wim Hof was, didn't know who he was till recently, I researched through consciousness. The Vedas it's a philosophical spirituality kind of teaching from thousands of years ago, I think 5,000 years ago maybe. The higher spiritual teachings of the Vedas in India. Some of it goes into Hinduism later, but the Vedas are this highest. They have a book called the Upanishads, which is the spiritual teachings. I ended up reading the Upanishads. I ended up meditating properly, seriously meditating for the first time in my life, taking it actually seriously, because I was fascinated by this now, and listening to the Vedas. And the Vedas are talking about that this world that we live in is actually a manifestation in consciousness itself. That you can imagine the world as a holographic projection, that this is a hologram. It's not ultimately real, it's like a dream, but you think of it like a hologram if you like. It's manifest out of light and energy, consciousness, but there's a reality to that projection. So, like you're watching a movie on a screen, on a cinema, you see the screen playing out, the film playing out with all the characters on it, all doing whatever on the movie. But there's a reality to that movie, which is the screen itself. The screen itself is the reality. The projection on it is is like a story, it's a dream, it's a projection. And so the Vedas teach that you are the screen. You're not actually the projection, you're the screen itself. You're the you're the underlining reality. And so they call that underlining reality the word Brahman. And Brahman is what Joe Dispenza calls the unified field. It's a place where there's no form. It's formless. You can't define it because it's not a thing. It's no thing. It's beyond the dimension of space-time. It's beyond it. But it interpenetrates it. It's everywhere and everything. And this physical universe exists within that space of no thing, if that makes sense. And the Vedas also teach that there is something called an Atman. The Atman is the universal spirit. In Christianity, you could say it's the same as the Holy Spirit. To me, it's the same thing. The Holy Spirit is the Atman. It's the same thing. It's the spiritual light which pervades the universe. And so I was learning about these Vedas and the teachings and doing meditation and absorbing stuff like this. And I started having experiences. Do you think Floyd had it coming? I haven't been able to get to that book. We'll try again. So I'll carry on. Sorry. So I started having experiences. One experience I had, I woke up at about 3 o'clock in the morning or something, and I'd been that night before I went to bed. I'd been repeating a mantra through a Vedic philosophy of. I'm not going to get into the mantra, but I was repeating this mantra. Do you want me to say that? I can say the mantra if you want. The mantra was, I am the manifestation and form of Brahman. I am the supreme self and nothing else. I am the Atman, which is Brahman, forever pure and the disciple of the self. Brahman, remember, is the underlining reality of the universe, this nothingness, this infinite space. The Atman is the spiritual light. So the mantra is saying that you are the void, you are nothing, essentially, pure consciousness, which is the spiritual light, which is the spirit, forever pure and the disciple of the self. And so I repeated that for an hour before I went to bed. And then I went to bed. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning with a vision in my head. And I can't even describe it because I don't really know how, but it was like a holographic 3-dimensional coloured image in my brain with my eyes closed, but it was there. It was some 3-dimensional coloured image in my head that I didn't really know what it was. And I'm kind of half asleep, but I'm having this experience. And out of my mouth, I say out loud, I say, I am the Supreme Self. And that exact second that I'm saying, I am the Supreme Self, and it's not, I wasn't thinking that, it just came out. At the same time that came out of my mouth while I'm having this 3-dimensional image in my brain, my dog Teddy scratches my door to come in my room. The exact second, I am the Supreme Self, scratch, 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 scratch. So I like get up and I open the door and Teddy jumps on my bed and he wants to fuss and love me for 2 minutes and then jumps off and leaves. He's 15 years old now. I can tell you in 15 years, he has never once in his life or since scratched my door in the middle of the night to come in my room, ever. The exact second I'm having this weird experience, he does that. Afterwards, I felt like whatever this one consciousness is, it gave Peter, the entity of Peter, it gave me an experience as the Supreme Self. That Supreme Self gave me an experience of that coming out of my mouth and the vision in my head. At the same time, it woke my dog up from sleeping, got him to come to my door and scratch my door at the exact second I'm saying that and having this experience. Like, my head broke afterwards. I was like, what just happened? So that was the first experience I had. A while later, at this point, I'm reading the Upanishads. I'm reading about Brahman and Atman and listening to Eckhart Tolle and consciousness and absorbing it all and meditating every day. And like as soon as I would wake up, Like, even if it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd jump up out of bed and just start meditating for an hour and get really quiet. Sometimes I would see like a very small blue halo of light, blue-white light, like a little ring, just kind of moving slightly it would just appear out of the darkness. Because when you close your eyes, it's black. But this was noticeable light, and it would come like a little ring of light, and it would just kind of oscillate or wobble a little bit, and then it would fade away, and then another one would come back. And I would just be watching it while my mind was if I thought about it, it would disappear. But when I was very, very quiet, it would come, and I could just watch it. So I was very into this, into meditating and quieting my mind, and I was excited about it. It was fascinating to me. The next experience, I woke up at 3 o'clock I don't know what time it was, about 3 o'clock in the 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that. I woke up with a realization already in my head, and it blasted out of my mouth. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I said, the ego is a teacher. You can learn from it. If you look at the ego, it shows you what you need to work on. It actually shows you where your problems are, what you need to work on in this lifetime. And from that perspective, you can see it as an important teacher to learn from, that it's important as a teacher. You got to pay attention to it. It shows you, it's a mirror for your own flaws. It's acting as a mirror for you to see where you're blocked. I had this full realization, and I thought chakras were bollocks. To me, it was like hippie stuff. It's nonsense. As soon as that realization finished, which I wasn't thinking about that before, I just woke up with it in my head, and it just blurted out, like, out loud. I felt my stomach, like, the best way I can describe it is, imagine a stretched out thin sheet of like rubber and someone very quickly stabbing a pen through it or something. I felt a pop like that. I went like, whoa. I could physically feel it. And I was like, what's that? And then I'm not kidding, the best way I can describe it was energy, like here, and it was just radiating. The only word I can describe it was bliss. It was just literally bliss, just energy of bliss, just pulsing in this part of it was amazing. And I was lying in bed for like 5 minutes feeling this energy and bliss. That's not normal, is it? That's not a normal experience. And I thought chakras were like not real, just hippie kind of woo-woo nonsense. I felt something pop and energy and bliss. And so now, like, I'm kind of more excited. I'm like, holy shit! Like reality starts to change for you, because you realize, well, there's way more to this than what I thought there was. Like, what is this? So the next, at this point, I was learning about Dr. Joe Dispenza. This has all happened to me in the last year, by the way, just to give you a time frame. All these experiences are I think within the last year. The UFO stuff was earlier, like December 2018 was the first one, and to about July of 2019 was when I was seeing the lights in the sky. I stopped going. I've not been since. And then this year, into 2020, is when I've had these weird experiences happen, just as a reference. I was following Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he was talking about breaking the habit of being yourself. He's talking about mystical experiences. He's describing his own mystical experiences. He's teaching thousands of other people, and they're having mystical experiences. They're having crazy healings, connecting to what he calls the unified field, which seems to be what the Vedas call Brahman, this existence beyond time and space, this pure consciousness. And so I'm absorbing his teachings, and I'm trying to break the habit of being myself. You create a new personality different from your old personality. And so I was meditating one night. This is one of the most insane things that's ever happened. Well, it is the most insane thing that's ever happened to me. I was meditating one night, and I was struggling with, how honest do I be? I was struggling with lust. I've been single for 8 years, and you miss certain things physically, and that was in my mind a little bit. I couldn't meditate because, like, thoughts of, like, you kind of miss that, and you kind of crave it a little bit now and again. And so that was popping up in my mind basically while I'm trying to meditate. So what I did was, I didn't want to give in to those thoughts. I tried to burn them away with fire. It sounds ridiculous, but it's what I did, honestly. I was imagining fire, burning it all away in my head. I actually repeated a mantra. And I just imagined fire in my head, burning away all this, lust or whatever. Burning it away in my head for it must have been 2 hours, I'm not kidding. Because I was annoyed that I couldn't meditate, because to me, at this point, it's disrupting my meditation. I want to quiet my mind. I don't want this stuff in my head. So I'm just burning it all away, because I just want to get rid of it. I want to get past it. And so I finish. I stop meditating. I open my eyes. My mind's kind of quiet. And I thought, well, I didn't give into it. I didn't, I got past it. I thought, that's a triumph. That's good. Because Dr. Joe Dispenza's talking about, you reach your emotional blockage of where you think you can get to, and you go a little bit further, something usually happens. I didn't know that at the time, but listening to him now, I kind of get it. I laid back on my bed. As soon as my head hit the pillow, right, I'm not asleep. I'm completely with it. As soon as my head hits the pillow, energy from what you would call the first chakra, it just exploded. It just went up. The best way I can describe it, it felt like roaring wind flying up my body very, very quickly and chaotically too. It was sudden and it was shocking, and it was like, me, what is this? You can't expect that. I don't think anybody expects that. The only way I can describe it was energy. And I don't bullshit. I don't make stuff up. This happened, right? This isn't normal. So if it's not normal, what we think of the universe, maybe there's a little bit more to it than what we thought there was. So this energy just goes, and it feels like, I can literally hear it in my head, and it sounds like roaring wind. Only way I can describe it, roaring wind. It's just energy going nuts in my body. At that point, I'm a bit shocked, because it's just, you don't expect it. It's way outside of normal. Nobody expects that to happen. And what am I getting myself into? And then, I am not kidding, right? I left my fucking body. I was gone. It felt like something. Imagine being shot out of a cannon 1,000 miles an hour straight up. That's what happened to me. It was fucking crazy. I was roaring through black space going upwards. I could physically feel myself going up. And it was I'm slightly shitting myself because I have no fucking idea where I'm going. I have no idea what's happening to me. I'm trying to relax because Joe's oh, when you have a mystical experience, it might surprise you, but you relax into it and trust it, and if you think too much, it'll stop. I'm fuck me, this is crazy. Your mind is being blown because it's your whole perception of reality is crashing around you, because what you thought was real is suddenly not as real anymore, and you're hurtling into space at 1,000 miles an hour, no idea where I'm going. And I see a black tunnel bend this way. And now I'm me. So in my head, I keep saying, I trust you. At the same time, I'm slightly shitting myself. Sorry for my language, but it's mental. It's crazy. At the end of this thing, there's a white space, and I'm about to burst out of it. I appreciate this sounds mental, but this is it happened. I don't bullshit. There's a white space, and I'm about to fly out of it. At this second, I think back to when I was seeing the lights in the sky the year before. In my head, I think, oh shit, am I being abducted by aliens? Because I know I'm going up into space. I'm going up into space at 1,000 miles an hour, and I'm about to burst out in a white space, and I've no idea where I'm going. That thought pops in my head. At that thought, it stopped. I'm just back. Everything's normal, and I'm gobsmacked. I'm just floored. I'm what just happened? What just happened to me? can you see how my view of reality is like what? That's a direct that it. I don't even know how to talk about it because it's mental. So about a week later, I did a live stream, and seemingly randomly, someone asked me on the live stream, "Have you ever had an out-of-body experience, Peter?" And at this point, I had not talked about spirituality at all. I talked about quantum mechanics and aliens and UFOs because I was into that already, but I'd never talked about spirituality. At this point, firstly, I'm convinced God is real because I'm having these crazy experiences. I recognize that it's one consciousness, that it's shared, because this UFO I was seeing, I knew it could hear the thought in my head and react. I knew there were beings that could hear thoughts in your brain. It's shared consciousness, nothing's private. Convinced of that. So I start talking about it on this video, on this live stream, and I share it, and I was like, well, yeah, I just had this mental experience a week ago, and it was fucking crazy, and I just told you what I just told you now. And I relayed the story, and I started talking about consciousness, that it's shared, that it's one consciousness, that we're all interconnected, there's no separateness, and how important love is. Because when you're one consciousness, you have to love everybody. Because it's like the universe looking at itself. It's like God pretending he's something else. Like, God is within everything now. Like, my whole idea of reality shifted. And when it's one consciousness and we're all sharing the consciousness, how you think and feel on a daily basis is contributing to the shared consciousness. If you're going around angry, moody, judging everything, criticizing everything, being nasty and horrible, think of it as energy and frequency. You're vibrating a frequency which is along those lines of nastiness, horrible, judging, criticizing, fear, all this. It's low energy, it's a low vibration of frequency. When you go around with love, kindness, it's an energy, but it's a higher frequency, it's a higher energy, and you're sharing that in this shared consciousness. And so how you think and how you feel not only affects you, it affects everyone in the world. We are all contributing to the state of the consciousness on this planet by how you think and how you feel. Love is so important. You have to love everybody because it's shared consciousness. We're all interconnected. We're all relying on each other. We have to support each other. We have to love each other. We have to care for each other. That's what I'm learning right now. And it's fucking beautiful. So I started talking about that and I got emotional. I got a bit teary in the video, and I was worried about talking about it. Because again, I'm worried about people thinking I'm nuts. But I talked about it anyway, and I got a bit, emotional, and people thought I was being a bit weird. I deleted the live stream because I didn't want people thinking I was nuts. I deleted it. But that night I went to bed. Bearing in mind this is the first time I'd opened up about it. I went to bed that night. Something woke me up again in the middle of the night, like 3 o'clock in the morning. As I woke up, I felt my heart go. It just opened. I mean, it just went, whoa. I can only describe it like it felt full, whole, like it literally felt like the valves in my heart got bigger and there was more blood in there. Like it felt physically full, and it felt warm and safe and beautiful. And it was the most pure feeling of love I have ever felt in my life. And it was unconditional. It was unconditional love, and my heart felt full. I was love. In that moment, I just was love. My heart was so full, so beautiful. It was like, oh. But the feeling was like being freed. It was like I'd been in a prison and suddenly it just felt so good and so like, I can't even describe. I've cried describing this experience before because of how profound it was for me, right? Because at that moment of my heart feeling whole and full of love, my mind shifted and it felt like it just went, and I was surrounded by light. subtle, beautiful white light was everywhere. And that light was unconditional love. And it felt like I was the light, but not just me. Everybody is that light, and that light is unconditional love. It's beautiful. It's pure. It's divine. It's sacred. It was like angelic, or like it felt like being in the presence of God. To be honest, I mean, I don't know how to describe it other than completely spiritual. There was just beautiful white light everywhere. My heart was just wide open, and I'm feeling this most profound sense of pure love I've ever felt in my life. That moment changed my life forever. I cannot go back to being how I was before. Like, everything changed. Now I've got Christ on my freaking wall. Go back 2 years ago on my channel, right? H.R. Geiger, a massive picture of an alien head. There was no Jesus, because I'm confused, honestly. The honest answer is, I have no idea what's happening to me. I don't know why. I don't understand it. I'm not enlightened, but I've had a vision in my head where I recognized that God was in my dog and in me and giving us both an experience. I felt a piercing in my stomach and waves of bliss. I'd been ripped out of my body into space at 1,000 miles an hour. Like, reality's not what we thought it was. I've had my heart open to unconditional love and surrounded by a divine light. How do you tell people that without sounding mental? When I was an atheist my whole life, I didn't believe in any of it. There's part of me that's scared of talking about it because I don't want to lose my ego doesn't want to. I've got to protect my business. I've got to protect my Like, I can't share this. Part of me is scared of talking about it. The other part of me is like, you kind of have to. Like, I'm confused. I don't understand it. I don't know, but I can tell you what happened to me, and I can tell you it's real. And I was wrong. Peter was wrong, and I was convinced that I was right. That's the amazing thing. I was absolutely convinced. I mean, I was kind of arrogant about it. Looking back, I was arrogant about it. I knew. Peter knows. I thought I was in line by thinking God was bollocks, that it's not real, that it's all nonsense. I was convinced of it. I had debates with people about it for years. And then that happens to me. And now I've got Christ on my wall and Krishna and Buddha, and I'm reading spiritual books and I'm meditating every day and I want to love everyone. What the fuck? Sorry for swearing. Oh my god, I could cry again. Is that why you have the heart picture? That's the sacred heart of Jesus. I'm trying to love everybody, because I know that we're one consciousness. I know that you have a divine light in you. We all do. It's not just in me. Like, it's in everybody. You are divine. You are a spiritual being. You're not your body. I can promise you, I've been ripped out of mine. You're not the body. It changes it changes everything. I know I am not my body. That's hard to wrap your head around, but I also know I'm not my mind. And I'm confused. I'm confused. Sometimes I'm depressed. Sometimes I'm depressed because I feel so impure. I feel so unworthy of it. Sorry. I'm okay. Ooh, shit. Don't get emotional. Sometimes I feel that light, that love is in you, because it came out of me. And I didn't even fucking believe it. I didn't believe it was real. And it came out of me and showed me. And I know it's in you. Fuck. You have to talk about that. So, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about... Sorry. I tried filming this video like 3 times and I can't do it, so I thought, well, I'll just do it on a live stream and I'll do the best I can. Joe Dispenza talks about heart coherence. I'm going to talk... So that, my heart thing that happened to me, that's the last experience that happened to me. No, actually, it's not. Okay, no, something else happened. Okay, let me tell you the last thing that happened that's, like, nuts. This was only, like, a few weeks ago. I was in a half-sleep state at kind of early in the morning, like maybe 5 o'clock. I'm not sure what time it was. 5 o'clock-ish in the morning, very early. And do you know when you're kind of in a half-sleep, half-awake state where you're just in between a little bit? The voice in my head said, I am the self. There is nowhere I can go where the self is not. No idea why that came into my head, but it was like a voice in my head that happened. Right, as soon as I finished saying that, I saw a flash. It went pfft, and then my body's gone. My body was gone. Not there anymore. I'm like an awareness, and I'm floating through a black space. And I'm slightly confused because I've never experienced this before, that I have no sense of where my body is. It's just not there. And weirdly, there was like, it looked like a TV screen or something. It was like a projection, and on it was kind of like, it looked like a moving cartoon show. This is what happened anyway. There was like a cartoon show playing on a screen at the side of me, and I'm like, that's weird, and I'm floating past it, and I'm just floating into a black infinite void. There's nothing there, but I'm scared because I don't have a body, and I'm a bit confused, and I'm, what's this? But I feel like I'm floating through it. Now, I feel at this point, I have this memory of the UFOs in the sky, the lights in the sky from like, you know, the year before. I start to panic to myself, thinking, am I, like, have I just been pulled onto a, like, am I being pulled into a craft or something? Like, I'm just confused where I am. So I get fearful, I get scared, and I start trying to punch because I want to protect myself. I do not have any arms, they're not there. I start trying to kick, there's no fucking legs, they've gone. And I scream, and guess what? There's no mouth, there's no voice. There's just nothing. And I scream, bring me back! But it comes as a thought in this awareness. And the best way I can describe it to you, I saw black light. The only way I can describe it, black light. It rushed towards me from very far away and just went like that. And it starts pushing me backwards. It was like light, but it was black. It was dark, and it was just pushing me back. And I felt very safe, I was familiar with whatever this black light was. Like, there was I can't explain it, but it felt, I trusted it. I completely trusted that it was taking me back. I just had complete trust with whatever that was. It was safe, and I trusted it. And this black light is just pushing me very quickly backwards through this space. And then, poof, my eyes open. And I'm like, what just happened? I didn't have a body for a while. I was just an awareness in a black... That was the last thing that happened to me anyway. Can we move on and discuss some Hugo Boss colognes? Sure. So what I want to talk about now is that's all I can tell you. That happened to me. No idea why. I'm not enlightened, but I can tell you what happened to me. That's the truth. I don't bullshit. I don't make shit up. 2 years ago, I thought God was nonsense. Didn't believe in chakras. Wasn't into spirituality. Now I know God is real. Absolutely real. I've got no doubt. I can't look at a crow without seeing God. He's everywhere. I'll tell you about the synchronicities next. It's, to be honest, this is why I can't film it on a video, because it takes too long to talk about it all. After these experiences, it changes everything. After you feel your heart open and you're surrounded by light, I mean, life isn't normal after that, is it? Knowing that light is in everyone. It just is. You are that light. You're beautiful. You are the spirit. You're not your body. You're this beautiful spiritual light. You're this spiritual being. And so one of the synchronicities I had, Joe Dispenza talks about synchronicities, and that it's like the divine playing with you. And do you mean as in creation when you say about a crow? I mean, I can't look at any animal without knowing that God is inside the animal. That's why I had to stop eating meat. I can't eat meat anymore. Because I look at that meat and I just think, oh my God, I've just shot and killed one of God's creations, and eating its flesh, it's kind of gross when you see it in that way. So I can't eat meat anymore. I'm not saying give up meat, eat what you want, but just after my experiences, I can't do it anymore. So when I look at any animal, I just know God is in them. It's just it's everywhere. It's like the energy of everything. And so I had this experience, right, of there's a reservoir up the road from me, and about 7 or 8 years ago, something like that, I built a tree swing on a red rope tree swing. And I haven't been for years. I've not been to that reservoir probably in 3 or 4 years, maybe 4 years. So I've not been to the reservoir for 4 years. I had a random thought in my head one night, I'm going to go to the reservoir. I'm going to go swing on my swing. And I thought to myself, it might have been cut down. I better take a rope with me just in case. So I got a red rope in my back pocket and I pondered off to the reservoir. As I'm walking through the reservoir, in my head, I'm thinking to myself, all of this is God's garden. It's God's garden. God's in the trees. Is the energy that makes the tree grow. God is in the air that I'm breathing. It's all God's garden. All the flowers, everything's God's energy in it. And I'd been listening to quotes from Sri Anandamayi Ma, who's a beautiful saint. I've got her picture here. And one of her quotes was, the ending line of the quote was about the glory of God's garden. So I was thinking about that. I'm walking through the glory of God's garden, and everything is, God made manifest. And so I get to the tree swing. It's gone. It's been cut down. So I make a new one. I swing on it for a while. I take it down because I don't want it to get chopped again. And I walk around a corner and I speak to God, right? I climb up a slanted tree that's fallen down at an angle, and I climb up it, and I have a conversation with God out loud, and I say, God, you've made a beautiful garden, God, but I don't have any friends. I've got no friends in your garden. It would be really nice to have some friends in your garden to talk to. And I climbed down from that tree and walked round the corner, and there was 3 people stood by that tree swing, younger than me, kind of early mid-20s, 2 girls and a boy, and they had a backpack and they were pulling a giant red rope out of it. And I see that, and I pull my red rope out of my pocket and I say, me too. I was doing that. And they tell me that they've been coming to this tree swing for the last 3 years, but that 2 months ago someone cut it down and they've not been back since, because it's gone. It was gone. And tonight they thought they would come and rebuild it. I'm having my mind blown because I've just spoke to God and said I want some friends to talk to, what are the chances of me seemingly randomly going to the reservoir after like 4 years of not going, at that day, at that hour, to build that swing at that point, seeing everything as God's garden, asking God to have some friends to talk to, and then 3 people are there building a swing at the same time, at the same hour. I was just like, that's mental. The coincidence, it seems more than a coincidence at this point. And so I walk away from them, and then I realise I've just asked God to have some friends to talk to, and I'm walking away, and I see this massive stick, and it's super hard, and I think to myself, well, that's perfect for the swing. I can use it as an excuse to go back. So I picked up the stick, and I walked back to them, and I introduced myself properly, and I said, oh, I'm the one that built this swing, like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago or something. It was ages ago I built it. And I was like, I'm the one that built it originally, but I've not been back for 4 years. And they're like, oh, that's crazy. Like, you know, we've been coming here for the last 3 years, and 2 months ago it got cut down, and we've not been back since, and tonight we thought we would come and swing around. And I'm like, that's crazy. And we ended up having a conversation about God and the universe for like an hour, and I was telling them about saints and Maharaji and the miracles that he had and shared consciousness, and it was amazing. We bonded and chatted for like an hour, then we walked back together and parted ways. To answer Richard's question, no, I didn't ask for their number or keep in touch or anything. I maybe should have done, but it was just a nice moment. I didn't expect anything from it other than it was a beautiful hour of connecting with people and talking about God and the universe, and then, you know, that was it. But that was crazy to me that happened. That's not the only synchronicity, though. If that was the only one, I would think, well, maybe it's coincidence. Like, I took the dog for a walk one night outside, quite late on. All the stars were out, beautiful stars. Again, I'm thinking about this quote by Anandamayi Ma about the glory of God's garden. At this point, I can't help but see God in everything. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I can't help it anymore. And I'm looking at the sky, at the stars, because it's, you know, and I'm just imagining how vast it is, how far it goes, because, like, the Milky Way galaxy is like 100,000 light years across. That's just ours. There's trillions of galaxies, trillions upon trillions of planets and moons, and you can't comprehend the size of infinity. It's ridiculous. And so I was thinking to myself, this quote, like, the glory of the garden, this physical universe is like the garden of God. And I'm thinking, it's infinite. Like, how... I was thinking to myself, supreme... Like, people call the God a supreme being. I was like, it's not enough. Like, infinite creation? And I'm thinking to myself, like, every snowflake that falls on Earth is unique. There's not one snowflake that's the same. Every single one is unique. Every pattern on a zebra is unique. Every fingerprint on a human is unique. Every iris in a human is unique. I'm like having my mind blown looking at infinite space and all these stars, and I can't comprehend any of it, none of it. It's so far beyond me. I'm in awe of God, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, behold the glory of the garden. I get it. It's just incredible. It's a fucking miracle. At that second, a shooting star appeared above my head, directly above my head as I'm looking up. It was beautiful. Like, this beautiful shooting star, white, just went above my head and went in the line that I'm facing. I'm stood looking up at the stars, thinking about God and how amazing he is. And then it appears right above my head and fires across the sky, and the line that I'm looking leaves this incredible trail. I mean, it was majestic. It was beautiful. And just... And I'm like, wow! I was just thinking about how amazing God is, and then this amazing shooting star just shoots across the sky. It was beautiful. I had another one where... Now, you could say, well, maybe that's coincidence too. I had another experience. I randomly decided, seemingly randomly, that I was gonna fly my drone and film some cows for a YouTube video with my drone. And so off I pop randomly in the afternoon, and I pull up in this particular place that I don't really at the time go that often, because I saw cows on the hill. I thought, oh, that'll do. I can film these cows up at the top of this hill, because I wasn't sure I was gonna go at first. I was just kind of driving and winging it, and I was like, I just wanted to film cows. So I pull up, see these cows on the hill, get out. I'm looking where to fly my drone, because there's pylons, okay? There's a few pylons, and I don't want to crash my drone. So I'm figuring out the best part where I can get to these cows and film them. And then I notice there's a lamb. There's a baby lamb. There's a field, and in the field there's sheep, lambs, and cows. And I notice there's a lamb, and it's on the wrong side of the fence. It's on this side of the fence, and it can't get back in the field, and it's laying down in this kind of tall, I don't know what you call it, fern? Yeah, it's fern. It was laying down in this, I could barely see it. It was lost in this overgrown fern stuff. And I see it seems to be stuck. And so I jump over this ravine thing, because this is in the middle of nowhere. Like, it would die basically if I hadn't got there. It would have died for sure. No one's gonna see it. I jumped over this ravine and walked in, and I realised now it's properly stuck. It's got its head well and truly stuck in this wire fence. It's got these little tiny baby stubby horns, and its head's totally jammed into the wire fence that are like squares. It can't get its head back out, and it's ramming itself into the fence because it's scared of me. And so I grab hold of the lamb, and I'm trying to get its head out without hurting it. It's quite difficult to get it out because it's properly stuck in there. Get its head out, hold its belly, lift it up and put it over, and then ran off to its mum. If I hadn't have had the thought to go there and film that cow, that lamb would have died. For sure, it would be dead. Because the farmer wouldn't have seen it. The farmer would not have seen that, for sure. It would be dead. It felt to me like God, bear in mind all the experiences I've just told you for the last hour, right? It felt to me like God, I know he's in the lamb. He knew that lamb was stuck. He knew that lamb is going to die. He knew that I don't know. I feel like at this point he can do what he wants with me. I don't know. He put a thought in my head of go there and film this cow, because then you'll see the lamb and then you'll be able to free it. I know it sounds nutty, and there's people that think all of this is bollocks, but it's happening to me, and I thought it was bollocks. So, like, I'm just sharing what happens. It felt to me like something greater than Peter got me to go there so I could be a tool to help relieve suffering. That lamb was suffering, it was stuck, it was away from its mother, it's going to die if it doesn't get out. God used me as a tool to help that lamb. That's what it felt like. In Yorkshire, yes, Yorkshire. So those are my experiences. I do feel like it's important to say it, because I want you to realize that we're not what we thought we were. Like, this civilization is fucking asleep. We're brainwashed. We're culturally conditioned into being work puppets. We go to work, we pay our mortgages, we buy things, we retire eventually, and we die. We have no fucking idea our own potential. And it's not our fault. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. Nobody's fault. We don't know. But I'm telling you, because it happened to me, that you can connect to something amazing. And it changes your life. My life is totally changed. I can't go back to being what I was before. Now I want to be kind to everyone. I want to love everyone. I think it changes everything. It changes you as a person. And my my perspective of why we're here and what reality is now is totally shifted. Like, consciousness has many dimensions. This is one realm of consciousness in the material world. You can connect to God, like, and that's an atheist, lifelong atheist saying that. You can connect to the energy of the universe. Call it what you want. I don't really care what you call it. But it's an energy, and it's intelligent, and it's within you, and it's within everybody, and you can connect to it, and it can blow your fucking mind and give you these crazy experiences. You don't have to live an ordinary life. You can have your mind blown, you can have your heart opened up, you can be surrounded by light, you can leave your body. Like, you are a divine spiritual being that you can connect to it. You can connect to that divinity. So I don't know what's happening to me, but I can share what's happened. I can share what's happened because I feel like I'm almost obligated to be honest, from where I've come from that atheist point of view. For it to happen to me, I almost feel like an obligation to say, well, I was wrong. Like, the people that are religious, the people that believe in God with faith, they're not naive like I thought they were. They're blessed. They're actually blessed. And I didn't understand that. And you can't understand it. Wait. My old self, the old Peter, couldn't accept it. I couldn't accept it. I wasn't ready. It took these experiences to make me realize that we are spiritual beings and we have amazing potential and we can connect to something, and that energy can change your life for the better, and it can heal people. I mean, it can literally heal people. So part of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work is talking about heart and brain coherence, which I want to talk a little bit about because I'm taking this kind of seriously. I bought a heart coherence monitor. It looks like this. It clips to your ear. It clips to your earlobe. You clip it on. It's Bluetooth. You turn it on. This measures the beats of your heart. Boom, boom, boom. And it's called heart coherence. When you live in stress or fear, when you're in your thinking mind that judges and separates everything, when you're not calm, this is what your heart looks like in a waveform. You see that line? That's my heart. That's the rhythm of my heart. So imagine a drum beating as your heart beats, yeah? That drum is way out of time. It sounds terrible. That's what your heart's doing pretty much all the time. When you live like that, in fear and in stress and in survival, your heart is out of whack all the time. Really, it's not good. You can get sick from that. When you quiet your mind and you put your attention in your heart and you feel elevated emotions of love and you regulate your breathing, your heart miraculously changes and the beat goes from that to that. Can you see the difference? Look how beautiful that waveform is to the last one. From that to that, it creates this boom, 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 boom. Suddenly it's a perfectly timed drum. It's beating in perfect coherence. When your heart is coherent like this, you're building an electromagnetic field around your body that people can measure with electronic equipment. It's up to 3 meters wide. It builds you're becoming more energy and less matter. Science, physics, you actually create your heart acts like an electromagnetic amplifier almost. You're building an electromagnetic field around your body. And that heart coherence starts to make the brain coherent. And your brain gets out of coherent because we're always thinking. When you're constantly thinking thoughts, it's firing. Imagine your brain like lights, firing neurons going. That's using the energy of your consciousness, and it's absorbed and lost in thoughts all the time, constantly. When you stop thinking, the mind becomes quiet. That consciousness can go into the brain and it organizes and makes the brain coherent. You're more whole, you're more connected, you're more peaceful, you're more centered, you're more everything's working properly as it should in your body. This brain and heart coherence starts to that's how you build a connection with the divine, essentially. By quietening your mind and opening up your heart, you actually start connecting to the universe. You're becoming this energetic electromagnetic field around your body, physical body. And not only that, but it actually it increases your immune system by about 50% by releasing chemicals in your blood, which acts almost like it's more powerful than a flu shot. You get less sick if you open up your heart and love more, if you practice this. You can understand, can't you, that if you go around with stress and fear and judging and anxiety, that when your heart's beating out of time, it's common sense that you're not going to be that healthy in comparison to when your heart's beating like a perfect drum and you're radiating love everywhere. That is common sense, isn't it, when you think about it? So it's good for you. It also lengthens the telomeres of your DNA so you live longer. So I'm practicing that now. I'm practicing sitting quietly and just radiating love out of my heart. And your heart changes to that. It makes a difference in your body. So I don't have all the answers because I don't really know anything. All I can tell you is what happened to me, and that I want you to know that it's real. I don't understand it. I have no idea, but I can tell you it's real. I can tell you that you're not your body, you're not the thoughts in your head. We have the wrong identification of self is the problem. When I ask, who are you? Most people in the world will say, well, I'm Peter. Well, who's Peter? And then you might describe your personality, the thoughts in your head, your mind, the concepts you're associated to, your physical body. That becomes who we think we are. We completely think with our body, with our mind, with the roles that we're playing. That's our identity. That's the screw up. You're not that. Imagine your body like a flower or a tree. It's a manifestation of the universe. It appears and it disappears. It's born and it dies. What you are is the consciousness which is using that vessel. It's a container. The body is a container for consciousness. You are the consciousness. And that consciousness has a divine light, a spiritual loving, unconditional light. That you are that. I've seen it. I've literally seen it. And I felt it. I know it's real. So I just want people to know that you are that. Like, people that suffer with depression, I mean, I suffer with it. I'm still trying to overcome my own stuff. I've got loads of work to do. I'm still very, I go through swings of depression still, even though I know this is real and how amazing and beautiful it is. And I go through swings of, my mind telling me I'm unworthy and I'm gross and I'm so far away from God and I've got loads of work to do and what's going to happen to me in my next life. All this mental stuff is still there. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But I know that you are an immortal being. It's fact for me. And there are beings out there. There are beings, firstly, with my direct experience of that light in the sky that can hear the thought in my head. Right? There's beings from other places that can read your mind. There's beings on earth, like saints, like Maharaji, Neem, Karoli Baba, that know your entire past, your future. He knows everything. If you think it's in his awareness. There are beings like this that exist. It's incredible. I want you to know that that's real. Joe Dispenza is mental. I mean, what he's doing is almost... I'm not comparing him to Jesus, so don't get this wrong, but it's almost biblical what is happening with the work that he's doing. I mean, it's nuts. Listen to some of his testimonials of the people that go to his workshops. There's people that have seen 9-foot tall beings of light, like angelic beings of light. Loads of them around the space while they're meditating. And they're healing people. They're healing people. Like people with stage 4 cancer have no cancer anymore. People with MS cured. People that were blind can see again. People in wheelchairs that had a stroke are getting up and walking. Like, there was a woman that had all screwed up intestines that she couldn't go to the toilet and she could barely eat food. She experienced blue beings, like Krishna's a blue being, blue beings pulling out her intestines in like a holographic kind of way, rearranging them, putting them back, and now she can eat what she wants and she can go to the toilet normally. That's not normal, is it? That's like way outside of what we thought was reality. That there are like multi-dimensional beings closer to God that are helping us. That's a lot for anyone to wrap their mind around, isn't it? But that's what's happening. It's amazing. Now, from Ramana Maharshi's point of view, I can explain it even further, that these planes of consciousness is like energy and frequency. Like I said, the anger, aggression, fear, all that kind of stuff is low vibrational energy. Love, high vibrational frequency and energy. All of this consciousness stuff, these planes of consciousness, are appearances, manifestations within consciousness. That includes other dimensions on top of this one. So this physical dimension of time, space, there's spiritual dimensions of light and energy, and there's literally angels, like angelic beings of light, closer to God. There's a hierarchy of spirituality, of like, we're in a middle plane, there's lower planes, there's higher planes, there's beings of light, like, it's all there, and God is like the whole thing. Beyond that, all of it is an appearance in consciousness, and all of it is dreamlike, like projected dreamlike through light and energy. From the standpoint of the absolute, the self, Brahman, the void, nirvana, whatever word you want to call it, none of that exists. The pure self alone exists. That field of nothing, that nothingness that I described, is the absolute reality, which everybody is already. But we go through what I can understand as millions of years of going through experiences of different planes of consciousness, different bodies, different lifetimes. They're all playing out. Eventually, you awaken spiritually and go into these higher planes, to the spirit, to the light. The closer you get to God, like I said before, the analogy of the drop going into the ocean, you get to the point where the consciousness, all of this is consciousness, the consciousness is liberated. It's freed from the cycle of experiencing things. It's like God experiencing himself. It's like the universe looking at himself. This is how I understand it so far. And it gets to the point where you're liberated, like Ramana Maharshi, and it's over. You're just everywhere. But that experience of your identity's gone. You're no longer a person. You're not an entity anymore. You're nothing. But in being nothing, you're everything. You've merged into God, where there is only that now. So like your separate individuality merges into God, essentially, at the pinnacle of it. Like, we're on a spiritual journey of going back home. When we get back home, we merge into the one and dissolve, and then there's just that, is my understanding. But that is bliss. That's the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is there's only one thing. It's not like loads of individual souls playing golf on a cloud. I mean, you're like supremely free. You're free, completely free. You're boundless. There's no boundary to you. Your consciousness isn't restricted or limited. You're everywhere, everything, free, totally free. And in that, you're completely whole, full, in yourself, the true self, the real self, Brahman, or whatever you want to call it, the mind of God. You could call it the mind of God. Think of the universe like the body of God, and you merge into the mind of God. You could think about it however way you like, really. But that is called Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. It's blissful, it's bliss, it's pure bliss. You're whole, you're everything, you're everywhere. That's what that's what the goal is. We're here to realize God and to spiritually awaken, and to eventually, it might take a long time, so to speak, of births of different, but, Sat Chit Ananda. But it's not my place to say, like, I appreciate people from different religious backgrounds have different beliefs. All I can tell you is what I personally directly experienced, and what I've learned from people that are having experiences like Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza's had mental experiences. He's left his body multiple times. One of the times, he left his body, started flying out of his body through a window that he thought was going to go to his garden, flew out of it. He wasn't in his garden. He was in another body, someone else. He was someone else in a different time, in a different country. He was in England, in London, driving a horse and cart as a half black African, half white man, driving a horse and cart, trotting around people in top hats in London, taking them to Hyde Park. Like, he lived an entire lifetime as this horse cart rider, and when he woke up back in his Joe Dispenza body, only 15 minutes had passed. That tells you something about the nature of time, doesn't it? Time isn't linear. It's not real. Like, this stuff isn't taught in schools. Like, this stuff should be taught. Like, we should be... Who's telling you at school that, well, actually, what you are is not your body, you're not your mind, your consciousness, you have a connection to God, you can have your mind blown by the miracle of the universe, and you can connect to that supreme intelligence, have multidimensional experiences, have your heart opened up, be surrounded by light, leave your body, do you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, but you can see now why this stuff is on my wall. That's the change I've gone through. But you can't, like Floating Man says, you can't prove it, so to speak. But I know what happened to me, and I can tell you that. That's all I can do. I can say, well, I can tell you what happened to me because I know that's real. I know that happened to me. That's what I can give you. And I can say, well, when it happened to me, I was following people like that. So have a listen. And what he's saying seems to match up with my personal experiences. Maybe check him out. If you want to have your mind blown by what can happen in consciousness, then check that out. I can recommend you stuff, but that's it really. That's the Q&A. I've finished rambling now. Was there any more questions? That's it. Hi Tony, how you doing, buddy? So, yeah. Well, I've got nothing more to say. I've answered all the questions, or most of them. I left some out. It's really important that we try to love everybody. I've not even told you about the dreams I had. I had crazy dreams as well, like proper lucid teaching. They're like, it felt like a teaching in the dream. It's weird to explain. I think the video will be another half an hour if I get into those. But from my understanding, from my direct experiences, not going off textbooks, like real life, actual experiences, I know consciousness is shared, that it's one consciousness. I know that really that you are consciousness. You're not your body, you're not the mind, you're not the thoughts in your head. You are consciousness. That consciousness can't die, is eternal, it's immortal. You are that consciousness. That consciousness has a spiritual light in it, which is divine and spiritual, and it's unconditionally loving, and it loves everything. I've seen it. I've felt it. I know it's real. That you have chakras, that they're real. I showed you the Wim Hof video. I've felt mine pop in my stomach and bliss. Like, you can balance your chakras. They're real. What I'm trying to do is work in these two now. The chakra in your throat is responsible for telling the truth. Hence why I'm answering this question on the live stream, which might damage my business and I might lose subscribers. But if I don't tell the truth, I feel like I'm not living properly. When I feel like in my heart it's important to share, to let you know. Because if I knew someone that knew that was real, I would want them to tell me. Because I think it's important. So I'm trying to work in that by telling the truth. And I'm trying to be in my heart, which means you try to love everyone. And so you can balance your chakras. From my understanding, the chakras are like electromagnetic energy in what they call the subtle body. I don't really understand it. They're like electrical spheres within the body. Wim Hof has seen them, perceived them in his awareness. So has Sri Anandamayi Ma. She saw her own chakras too. When you open the ones in the head is where you have the 1,000-petal lotus and the one with God and or one consciousness and enlightenment, basically. Your vision changes. You perceive the light around people's bodies and stuff. It actually upgrades you. Joe Dispenza talks about how you get biological upgrades in his workshops that he does with the meditation. They're actually, what's interesting with the Dr. Joe Dispenza is that they measure it scientifically. They've got brain scan properly brain scans hooked up onto the brain of people, and they get them to go into these deep meditations where you change your brain waves into, I think, is it delta, theta brain waves? These high, or is it gamma? Gamma, theta brain waves, sorry. These high frequency brain waves. And this is where you start to have like mystical experiences, like God intervenes and like goes poof, and the energy goes into their brain that's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times above the standard deviation of what's normal in the human brain. I mean, it's crazy levels of energy. Like doctors didn't think it was possible. Like, it's just nuts, the level of energy that's going into their brains. And it hits them, and they're having like an orgasm in their head. It's bliss, and they're having transcendental, mystical experiences where they're like one with the universe, one with God, having profound visions, and like, it's crazy. But they're measuring it, and they're seeing the energy go into the brain. So, I mean, you can learn so much. Just read his books or like watch him on YouTube or something like. But people are being healed. This divine energy, this intelligence inside your body can heal people. That's the amazing thing. They're finding that they're doing these coherence healings now. So they'll get someone that's sick and they'll make a ring of people around them, and they'll get those people that have been trained to open up their hearts and to love, to that what I felt when my heart just opened up. They get people to open up their hearts and send love to the person that's sick on the floor. People actually get healed from illnesses that the doctor said that you can't be fixed from, like your lifetime medications or whatever, even like cancer stuff, like properly grim stuff, and they get healed. Like, this divine energy can work through you as a vessel, and it heals things. It literally heals people. It's crazy. Didn't know why you would lose subs. Everyone is... I felt like... I just feel like... Well, I think it's because I've come from an atheist background. So I know how crazy it sounds to an atheist, because I was an atheist. So, like, there's like really intelligent people that don't believe in God, that don't believe in spiritual stuff, that don't believe in chakras, that like, I understand it because I was convinced that I was right in not believing any of it. That's what I'm a bit worried about, that I know that a lot of the world is like that, because I'm like that. My best mate, Joe, is like that. Hi, Joe. That's Mavis. Mavis is really Joe, but there you go. But, yeah. I can point you in the direction. If anything I've said has interested you, or, like, got you curious of your own potential, because you have infinite potential. Like, you can have your mind blown. You can be healed from things. You can. It feels like we're going through a shift in consciousness. Is the only way. I have no idea what's happening. I don't know. I don't have the answers to anything. I'm clueless. All I know is what happened to me, and I can share with what I'm learning from other people that know way more than I do. Like Joe, listen to people like Ramdas, spiritual teachers. Know that you are a divine being for a start. You are a divine spirit. You are that. I can promise you. I've seen it. I've felt it. I know it. It's my reality now. I don't understand it. I have no idea, but I understand that we all are that. And this planet is so interconnected, and we're reliant on each other. We're really reliant on each other. Your consciousness is the most important thing you can work on, because we're all interconnected. We're all relying on it. You're giving off energy all the time, and what energy you give off determines the level of consciousness on the planet. Think of it like energy everywhere. You're leaving a footprint of energy on the world in your lifetime. That energy lingers. It doesn't go away. It's like just ripples of energy. If you're going around with fear, with stress, with anxiety, with judging people, with criticizing people, all these things that the ego does, this voice in your head, it's the ego. It's not even real, really. It's just thoughts in your head. But we get associated with them, and when you're unconscious, like I'm still unconscious, but at least I'm kind of aware of it now, whereas before I completely wasn't. Like, if someone is, let's give an example, if someone is mean to you and verbally calls you a name or is rude to you, if you react back with blah, 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 screw you, blah, 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 that's ego. That's ego fighting ego. It's like two negative energies. You have to recognize, from my understanding now, is that, well, where they're attacking from is a voice in their head, which isn't real, and it's not actually them. It's almost like they're possessed by a thought, almost. You could imagine it like that. And so it's the thought form that is attacking you that isn't real, that it's not actually them, that what they are is the same as you, it's one consciousness. Ultimately, God is inside them. They are a divine light, but they're trapped in a mind. They're trapped in this mind prison, which is horrible. It makes people suffer. Like Eckhart Tolle, he couldn't live with himself anymore. He was so depressed, and this voice in his head was horrible. People are trapped in that shit. It's a horrible prison. So you can have compassion for someone that's stuck in that, because it's not their fault. That's what they're having to deal with, unfortunately, and it's not nice, but they're in a prison of their own mind. And you can't think your way out of it. It's horrible. So you can have compassion for them, that they're suffering. They're actually suffering. They might not even recognize that they're suffering, but they are suffering. And the only thing you can do for them is love them. That's it. Hating them, being rude back, it's not good for you and it's not good for them. If you love them, it's the only thing that has got the slightest chance of helping them in any way. We have to love everybody. It's one consciousness, and our state of consciousness is so vitally important to the shared consciousness. We have to spread love and kindness, because we're all a spiritual family. We're all these divine spiritual lights experiencing these crazy bodies that we can't control properly because we're stuck up here all the time. So that's what I can share with you. I think I've talked for way too much, so that's it. That's the end of the Q&A part 2. I hope I answered it okay and that I didn't ramble too much. I'm sorry for talking ages. I mean, there's more things that happened, but I don't want to talk for ages. Pete, you know I'm kidding, but if someone is mean to me, can my fist love... I know it's funny, buddy, but the ego is a tricky bugger. We have got to watch it. I mean, Maharaji, Neem Karoli Baba, Ramdas's guru, this is Ramdas. His main teaching, he didn't teach much, but his main one was love everyone. That's what I'm working on. I mean, I've got his picture on my wall. I don't consider him my guru or anything, but like, to me, it's just a remembrance of, like, he's not his body. He's not his body. He's like this one cosmic consciousness. He's everywhere. Cosmic consciousness. I use that image as a remembrance of why we're here. The same as Christ. Like, Christ consciousness. It's a thing. Like, I just want to remind myself every day by having this stuff on my wall. Really, I'm not religious. My stomach's making all sorts of noises. I think I need to go eat food. I'm hungry. But yeah, I just feel like I'm rambling too much. That's what I know now. That's what's happened to me. That's why I've got this stuff on my wall. And I just want you to know what you can connect to. That you, if it inspires one person, and then that person gets healed from something, or because they follow Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and they end up getting healed from cancer or something, like, my life has had, my stomach's really going nuts. My life would have had some kind of purpose that I've somehow helped someone in some way. Like, if someone takes what I'm saying and was like, well, if he can do it and he's an atheist, well, I can. And you have a mystical experience and your heart opens up and you're surrounded by light and you love everyone. Like, it's worth me feeling like, well, I'm embarrassed to talk about this kind of stuff if it helps one person. So that's why I feel kind of obligated to talk about it. Can you hear my stomach? It's properly going for it. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Sorry about that. Fascinating stuff. Cheerio, Pete. Happy New Year, buddy. Take care. So I'm gonna go off because I've been talking ages and I don't want to ramble. That's what I got. So to answer the question again, which was that, the answer is no, I'm not. I don't consider myself to be. I have no idea really what I'm doing. I don't understand any of it, but I know what happened to me and I can share that and maybe that'll inspire someone. That's all I've got, and I can point you in the direction of where to go by recommending those books and those people. I can't do any more than that because I don't know anything myself. I recognize how little I know. I don't understand a single atom. God is a mystery to me. It's an absolute mystery. I have no idea. But I know what happened to me, and if it inspires someone, then, that's it. But if you can try and be kind to everyone and love everyone, that's the best we can do, isn't it? At the end of the day, we've got to go to work, we've got to earn money, we've got to pay bills, we've got to have a normal life, so to speak. But if you spend a little bit of time meditating, quietening your mind, loosening the association with I'm my thoughts in my head and I'm my body, quietening that monkey mind down, practicing opening up your heart, practicing loving everyone, being kind when you can, you're going to make a difference to yourself, in your own spiritual path, because you are on a spiritual path, whether you know it or not. You just are. It's a spiritual universe. This whole thing is spiritual. We just don't recognize it for a while until we, you know. Quiet the mind and try to love everyone is my best advice. That's it. What am I missing? My ego wants to know about the giveaway. Has it happened yet? Yes, I picked for my Centauri giveaway. I did it already. One is going to New York to Aaron, and another one is going to Germany, I think. Yeah, Germany. So I picked two. One's getting Dendera, the other one's getting Gaia. So that's done and sorted. To be honest, I think it's beyond our understanding, to be honest, buddy. You can't work God out, can you? Because he wouldn't be God if he could. If a human could work out God, I don't think he would be God. He's a miracle. I mean, what I'm understanding, all of this is a miracle that exists at all. That's the power of God that actually exists in the first place. Like, an entire infinite universe of infinite creation where not a single snowflake that falls is the same. That is like, wow. That's amazing in itself. And this life is evolving and it can answer the question, who am I? Is there a God? And then you find out, fuck me, there is a God. Like, it's amazing. The universe, like, wakes up to itself and it gets excited and it's like, oh my God, God is real. And then, like, you get closer to God and more and more love, more and more bliss, and then, whoof, you merge into it. And, like, what is, like, it's mental. But anyway, you can't figure it out. If you could work God out, he wouldn't be God. But it is amazing and it's inspiring, and I want you to be inspired and to know that there's more to you than you thought there was. You don't completely associate yourself with this character because it's not what you are. You are so far beyond it. You can't even comprehend how beautiful you are. I got a glimpse of it. Like 4 seconds. That heart thing and the light was only like 4 or 5 seconds. That was it. If everyone could feel and see that, the whole world would be completely different. Completely. And I'm not special. I'm nobody. Like, I don't even know why it happened to me. If it can happen to me, it can definitely happen to you. So, go for it, man. Try and connect to that, because it's within you. That is within you, yourself, right now. It's never left you. It's always there. If I can inspire one person to try and connect to it, because it will change your life. But anyway, good night, everybody. Thanks for listening. That's it. Good night. I will see you soon with some more videos. Take care, everybody. I will see you soon. Good night, everyone. Bye.